Under the snow in the middle of the city, you can see lots of couples spending time together. One of them seen a man holding a gift, and he looked right and left to find someone. Then across the street, there was a woman calling him, smiling sweetly while waving her hand. Quickly, the woman wanted to approach the man, where both of them were seen smiling happily while crossing the zebra crossing. However, from a distance, a woman watches them and doesn't seem to accept them together, so she is planning something evil. When the mysterious woman smiled evilly, suddenly the woman who approached the man was mysteriously cut into several pieces without bleeding at all from her body and died on the spot. This, of course, shocked the man who had been waiting for his idol to come to him for a long time. The man then fell to his knees, apparently unable to accept that this was reality. Soon after, the mysterious woman who previously smiled evilly then left them seemingly satisfied with what had happened. Love or death, welcome to KML or kill my love. Meanwhile, on the other hand, a little boy named Ning Yuan was shown in the middle of a pile of dead birds. The little boy just stood there frozen, while people called him a monster. After that, a cell phone was shown showing that it was the first month of lunar year in the year 2020, and immediately after that, a man woke up from his nightmare, and that man was Ning Yuan, who had grown up. Ning Yuan said that he again had the same dream as before. After Ning Yuan got up from his bed, he quickly took a shower and spent some time there. After finishing, Ning Yuan called his girlfriend, who was still asleep. Ning Yuan seemed to have expected this, and he told his girlfriend Anran to get up immediately. But his girlfriend instead discussed yesterday's incident regarding a woman who died in a dismembered state. Ning Yuan wonders why Anran cares about such a thing, but Anran says that she is a biology major, and she is also curious about this terrible incident. She thinks it is strange and inhumane. After chatting on the phone, Ning Yuan was going to the lecture hall and to his friend's place while bringing breakfast. But before leaving, Yuan also saw a photo of his friend with various expressions that he pasted on the door wall. Only one expression Ning Yuan paid much attention to, and that was Smile One Polite's expression. That was because within that expression was a note telling Ning Yuan to always remember to smile like that. And then Ning Yuan smiled along with it. At the college, Yizhou University, many lovers were making out. There were also two women, and one of them was complaining because she didn't have a boyfriend. Her friend also suggested asking Ning Yuan, a senior brother who was said to be single, but her friend seemed not to know who Ning Yuan was. "How do you not know the most handsome senior brother?" she said right there, while behind them was a suspicious woman carrying a gift box. Not long after that, Ning Yuan also arrived at the college. The two women greeted and approached Ning Yuan, and then they asked about the gift box that Ning Yuan was holding. Ning Yuan was confused about what to answer, because he himself did not know who had sent the gift to him. "Is Ning Yuan going to keep it?" Ning Yuan replied with a kind smile. "Of course it was made with great effort." This is of course very amazing for the two women, considering that it is very rare for a man to appreciate someone's effort. After that, Ning Yuan left. Then one of the women said to her friend, "Ning Yuan is really handsome and very kind, isn't he?" In her opinion, senior Ning Yuan was indeed kind and friendly compared to other seniors, but behind that, she felt a bit strange with Ning Yuan's forced smile, as if Ning Yuan seemed to have and used many different kinds of masks, and that actually scared her. Long story short, Ning Yuan was already at his girlfriend Anran's place. Ning Yuan called her to come out immediately, but it looked like Anran had just finished taking a shower. Then she opened the door naked without paying any heed to Ning Yuan. Without reacting at all, Ning Yuan said, "Ron, please be polite and go get some clothes or you'll get sick. If you are sick, who else will I ask for help?" And Ron angrily closed the door while scolding him. After all was done, Ron also checked the chocolate gift that Ning Yuan got, and she said that it was made of premium material as usual and there was no poison. But there was one thing that bothered her as she found blood on the bean. Strangely, the blood didn't mix with the other ingredients. In fact, it was like the chocolate was deliberately coated with blood after it was finished. Ning Yuan always gets gifts on Mondays at the same time and place. Ning Yuan agrees and explains that he always gets gifts on Mondays. Black Box presents perfectly and doesn't leave any notes. This person also seemed to know Ning Yuan well and was able to avoid the maid who always cleaned Ning Yuan's front door, and then she put gifts at the door. "Who could it be?" Ning Yuan said, while making a terrible expression. seeing that Ron pinched Ning Yuan and said, "I told you not to make that expression again. I don't want to see that kind of face again. Do you understand?" asked Ran to make sure of this, which was then answered yes by Ning Yuan. After that, the two of them wanted to go to campus, and before that, Ning Yuan threw away the chocolate gifts he got. It turned out that from a distance a woman saw Ning Yuan throw away the gift. She said, "Ning Yuan, why did you throw away the gift I made for you?" Upon arrival at the campus, Yuan spoke with a friend named Chung Suo and said that he met someone yesterday and got his number. "Don't you already have a lover?" Ning Yuan asked. "You mean Xiao Li?" "We were just kidding," Chung Suo replied casually as if he had been playing with Xiao Li's heart. In another place, Xiao Li is shown smiling evilly, and she looks like she is holding a piece of paper and then kisses it and tears it while saying, "Cheng Suo, I wish you all the best." Back to Ning Yuan's place, Chung Suo then gets a message from his new crush, who seems to be going for a walk. He also asked Ning Yuan for help so he could skip class today, while Ning Yuan also said yes. Then he left Ning Yuan, but here Ning Yuan also saw a strange symbol on Chung Suo's neck and thought it was a tattoo. When did he get a tattoo of a symbol like that? Well, that's none of my business, thought Ning Yuan. Long story short, Ning Yuan entered the class and paid attention to the lecturer's explanation about memory and emotional problems, in line with Ning Yuan's interest in studying himself, which he still didn't even understand. After the lesson was over, Ning Yuan and the lecturer had a conversation, which in essence was the lecturer who had studied human behavior for 20 years. But even after meeting Ning Yuan 2 years ago, the lecturer simply couldn't figure out Ning Yuan's way of thinking, seeing Ning Yuan's behavior. Yuan is more like a robot. Hearing that, Ning Yuan was surprised and asked why the lecturer said such a sudden thing. Then the lecturer replied, "Don't be nervous, it's just my years of experience, but I have advice for you. We are only human. It is obligatory to have emotions. After all, it's part of life. Don't always be like that, Ning Yuan, and I guarantee that you will be more happy." Then the lecturer left Ning Yuan, who seemed still hit by the conversation. On the other hand, Ron is shown waiting for Ning Yuan in the middle of the city at night. After a while, Ning Yuan arrives at the place, and Ron reaches out her hand to ask something to Ning Yuan. "You can't forget it's my birthday, right?" asked Ron. "You're really smart. I've ordered a restaurant for dinner tonight." Ning Yuan said. "What you gave is of course not a dress anymore, right?" she asked. Ning Yuan couldn't even answer, and after that the two of them were already in the restaurant, and as Ron expected, Yuan still gave the same gift, namely a dress again, which made Ron furious. But Ning Yuan also said that he chose this dress a long time ago, and he thinks Ron will suit wearing it. Hearing that Ron even blushed, then Ron also wanted to replace her gift with a request. Ning Yuan didn't have a problem, but Ron wanted to feel love because she would soon be 20 years old. Ron also asked Ning Yuan to kiss her. Ning Yuan also said, "Didn't you say that it only has to be done with someone you like?" Before Ning Yuan could finish his sentence, Ron immediately kissed him, and it was their first kiss since they had known each other since childhood. Of all people, why should you, Ning Yuan? Ron thought to herself. But outside the restaurant, it turned out that someone was taking pictures of the two of them, and that was the mysterious girl who had always mysteriously given gifts to Ning Yuan. Here, too, we are shown about Ning Yuan and Ron's childhood past. Yuan was taken to the hospital, and the doctor diagnosed that Ning Yuan has a rare disease called a severe emotional disability. He does not feel normal human emotions such as happiness, anger, love, and joy. "Ran, what kind of disease do I have?" asked Yuan, who still did not know about what disease he was suffering from. "Nothing. Just remember, Ning Yuan, I am always beside you. Always," Ron replied while hugging Yuan. After that, it was shown that Ning Yuan and Ron wanted to go home. Ran, who is drunk, asks Yuan if she will have a boyfriend. She won't be able to be together every day anymore, and what will happen to him? "Of course I will wish both of you the best," Ning Yuan replied. Then Ning Yuan wanted to take Ran home, but Ran seemed cranky hearing Yuan's previous answer. Then Ron said, "You are still the same as before. Why is it only me growing up?" Ron also left Yuan. Yuan also wants to stop Ron, but suddenly Chung Suo calls that he has met his crush. "Leave me alone," Ning Yuan said with an angry face while turning off Chung Suo's call. It was the most terrifying thing that Chung Suo had experienced because this was the first time he had heard Ning Yuan get so angry like that. The next day Ning Yuan kept calling, but Ron never picked up. Suddenly someone knocked on Ning Yuan's door, and it turned out to be Chung Suo. Ning Yuan would not let Chung Suo enter because there was a collection of Ran's photos on the door. There Chung Suo also explained that he had come for 2 reasons. First, because last night I called Yuan in a bad mood, so I checked to see if Yuan was okay. Secondly, I want to celebrate the official relationship between me and Mei Mei, and want to celebrate it and you have to be present, said Chung Suo, explaining at length. Maybe I won't have time, said Ning Yuan, who didn't seem to want to come, but Chung Suo continued to say, Mei Mei invited her friends, including Ran. Heard that there was Ran, Yuan immediately decided to join. Long story short, night came. Yuan walked to the place Chung Suo had told him about. On the way, Yuan heard a woman say, those who betray me will be sacrificed, while she laughed, and Ning Yuan seemed to recognize the woman who turned out to be Chung Suo's ex, Xiao Li. But Ning Yuan chose to ignore it. After that, Ning Yuan arrived at Chung Xiao and his friend's place. Chung Suo also said that he and his girlfriend could hear each other's thoughts, but his friends didn't believe it. Suddenly Chung Suo heard something and wanted to prove that his girlfriend would soon be behind the door. His friends, including Ning Yuan, saw the door that was about to open, and it turned out that Chung Suo's girlfriend had really appeared. Suddenly it made his friend surprised. How did you do it? Did you plan it beforehand? Said his friend. I told you I'm fated to be with her. The voice in my brain is a gift from God, he said. There also turned out to be Ran, who came with Chung Suo's girlfriend. Seeing that, Yuan was relieved because Ran was fine. Then Yuan waved his hand to Ran with a smile. Seeing Yuan, Ran was surprised while remembering the incident that night. She immediately turned her head and wanted to run away. Is she still angry? What exactly did I do to her? Yuan thought, confused. Seeing that Chung Suo felt something strange about Ning Yuan's behavior and shouted, Just admit that you two are a couple, he said, making Ran's cheeks blush, and she wanted to explain. But her friends didn't hear her. Meanwhile, behind the door was a woman holding a piece of paper that looked like Xiao Li, Chung Suo's former ex. The paper said, Kill my love, and she said, Only I have the right to stand beside you, Senior Ning Wen. After that, Chung Suo brought 99 stalks of roses to celebrate his anniversary with Mei Mei, but suddenly one of his friends said something was twinkling around his neck. Chung Suo saw that Yuan was a little weird, the same as before, but why when Chung Suo all met him at home, he didn't see it, thought Ning Yuan. Then Chung Suo didn't care what his friend said about the twinkle on his neck. He also expressed all his feelings to Mei Mei while approaching his girlfriend. But suddenly the light around his neck seemed to explode, and at that moment Chung Suo was also chopped into pieces in front of his girlfriend and friends. Suddenly everyone was shocked and shouted. Ning Wen, who saw that, was shocked, and suddenly a symbol tattoo appeared on his neck. In a confused situation, a voice appeared in Ning Yuan's mind. Player Ning Yuan, number 163, welcome to Killing My Love. From now on, you must choose between love, life, or death. Suddenly a notification appeared that sounded a warning. You are on the verge of a dangerous zone with your lover. Ning Yuan realized that the voice he heard was the same as what Chung Suo had heard. Then Ran called Yuan. What are you doing? Come here quickly! Yuan was about to approach Ran, but the notification kept ringing. After that, Ning Yuan saw Chung Suo's ex-girlfriend standing behind the glass while she said, You made me have no choice but to do this, Chung Suo. Seeing this, Yuan realized that the incident that took Chung Suo's life was the work of his ex. Then Yuan was only a few meters away from approaching Ran, but the notifications he got kept on ringing. Yuan also realized that if he got closer to Ran, something would happen to Ran, and sure enough, Ran's finger looked like it was about to be cut off. Yuan warns Ran not to approach him. After that, Yuan went through the window by breaking the glass. Ran was confused to see him. Then she realized and found there was a wound on her finger. A few hours later, in a place like on the roof of a building, there was a beautiful and sweet girl singing a poem. After that, Yuan came. The girl also said that she had been waiting for Senior Ning Wen for a long time. Is the appearance beautiful? She asked. Yuan didn't even answer, but asked back. Was it the girl who called him to come here? That's right. Before I didn't dare to meet Senior, But now it's different, because Senior will never be fated to be together with Chen and Ran, said the girl. So basically you did this? Asked Yuan. That's right. I'm the one who started this game. I'm willing to be ashes while Seniors and Ran will be sacrificed, said the girl. The girl continued her words. After the game started, if Yuan and Ran got too close, then one of them would die in pieces. Hearing that, Yuan's face changed to his terrible mode. Yuan realized that all this time the one who always sent gifts was this sweet and naughty girl. And on campus, I also didn't really get involved with women other than Ran. What you're doing is boring and naughty, Yuan said. Hearing that, the girl also cried. So that's what you think, Senior? You have forgotten about that. After that, she was shown a little of the girl's childhood memories with Ning Yuan. The little girl said she would repay Ning Yuan's senior service when she grew up. Now I'm a senior adult, said the girl. After that, Yuan asked about the game the girl had started. Yuan wanted to know the reason. Looks like Yuan still doesn't remember about this girl. The girl realized that Yuan didn't remember her. It's not like that, Senior. Isn't everyone going to die sooner or later? Just like the snowflake in my warm palm is doomed to die. Since then, the only warm feeling is only about you, Senior, said the girl. What are you talking about? Yuan said. Then the girl continued her words. My love has been repaid because Chen and Ran can never pass my love to you. I can do anything for you, Senior, even if I have to die. The girl was jumping from the roof of the building. Goodbye, Senior. See you later. Seeing this, Yuan was shocked and could not save her. Yuan's face looks very shocked. After that incident, Yuan was already at his house and found out about the girl. The girl turned out to be named Yu Xiao Xiao. But how could he not do this to a stranger? The ashes sacrifice death. Then Yuan finds out about the couple's death on the internet. What a surprise, his search results were 150,000 about the death of a partner. After that, at a sports stadium, there was a couple who were keeping their distance. The girl seems to be complaining about the distance they can't get close and touching each other. It seems they are also players. Let's call them Li Xin and Xuan Ran. Suddenly a notification appears telling them a mission to kill players. Meanwhile, at Ran's place, who was calling Yuan but he never picked up. Ran also seemed very worried about Yuan because of the past incident. Then Ran was already in the laboratory room. There she was dissecting the rabbit's body. She also scolded her juniors who were just busy chatting. After that, Ran was still thinking about Yuan, who didn't pick up his phone and also didn't reply to her chat. Meanwhile, from a distance there is someone who is watching Ran. It looks like Ran will be targeted by a player. Long story short, at night, and coming home from college, she was followed by someone. Ran also realized that someone was following her, but after she turned around, there was no one. Is it just my feelings? Muttered Ran, but suddenly someone followed her. He said he didn't expect that it was Chen and Ran. Do you know me? Who are you? She asked. It doesn't matter who I am. I'm here to kill you, he replied. He also took out a knife and immediately attacked, but unexpectedly Ran could injure the person using her scalpel. That person turned out to be Li. Didn't you hear the message from the KML game? Said Li. I don't care about the game. The important thing is, you are a criminal, said Ran. Hearing that Li realized that Ran didn't know anything about the KML game, then Li said Ran must have heard about the recent incident about people dying like mutilated dead. It's one of the parties of a pair of lovers. If a couple crosses a certain limit, one of them will be cut into pieces, which means not only you can't get close to your lover, but you might also be able to put in danger at any time. To end this game, you have to follow the rules given by the designer of this game. To end this game is to kill you, Li said, while hitting Ran so hard that it made Ran fall. Li also wanted to stab Ran with the knife in his hand, but suddenly a flying water bottle flew into Li's hand and made the knife fall. Someone appeared. Seeing that Ran realized that the person was Ning Yuan, Ran asks why Yuan is here, and also why he didn't pick up the phone and reply to her chat. This is how women are even in a state of danger who are asked unnecessary problems. But their conversation was interrupted by Li. Seems very happy to see Ning Yuan number 163 and Ran number 164, he said. He also realizes that all this time Yuan has been watching Ran from a distance and thinks he is very smart. Then Yuan asked who made this game and how to end it. Lee also replied, I don't know who made it, but he knows how to end the game by making one of them die. Hearing Lei's explanation, Ryan immediately wanted to call the police. Seeing that Lee just laughed and said, Are you guys innocent or stupid? Even though this is ridiculous and can't be scientifically proven, it's just there. You have no idea what you're dealing with and how terrible this KML game is. You guys will slowly realize it. After Lee explained at length, he left saying that he would meet Yuan and Ran again as soon as possible and finish what needed to be done. Yuan and Ran were left who looked awkward. Yuan explained why he didn't pick up the phone and reply to her chats. It didn't mean he was avoiding Ran. It's just that Yuan wanted to straighten things out. Yuan knows their current situation makes no sense at all, but Yuan realizes that he and Ran entered a death game called Kill My Love. After that, Ran and Yuan continued their conversation in a city park by keeping their distance. Yuan says that he has a few clues that he got about what happened to them, and also heard news about a couple who died. But only one of them. The body of one of the dead lovers was also killed by an unknown force. Yuan also thought it was just a rumor, but after seeing the incident of Chung Suo's death, he changed his view. Although it's ridiculous and can't be scientifically proven, distance is an important point of everything, and if a couple crosses a certain line, then one of them will die in pieces. Unfortunately, you and I were brought into the game by a girl we don't know, said Yuan. Hearing that Ran was shocked, then Ning Yuan continued saying that the girl thought that Ran and Yuan were lovers. Ran also guessed that the girl Yuan meant was the girl who jumped from the building that time. Yuan also said yes. Then Yuan said from a logical point of view he couldn't find a solution easily, because the best proof tonight was the person who tried to kill Ran, and Yuan suspected that this KML game would continue to add new types of rules and new procedures. This would be more and more dangerous. Hearing Wen's explanation, Ran didn't seem afraid because according to Ran, since she was little, she was never afraid of anything if Yuan was with her. We have to help each other, and also don't leave each other, said Ran. Yuan immediately understood and said, Okay, Ran. The next day at the school library, there was another case of the death of one of the lovers. There was also a police officer there who was handling the case, so he called the principal there and said this case was like the previous cases. The victim died in a public place, and many witnesses saw him. His death was very strange. Somehow we couldn't find any clues. In my life, this is the first time I have encountered this ridiculous and senseless case, said the cop. Hearing that, the principal hoped he could still ask the police for help, but the police said that he was an atheist. But in this case, there was no human intervention, and the police apologized for not being able to help and continued the case. Meanwhile, on a campus, Lee's lover named Zhuan is giving Lee a message. He asks if Lee failed to kill Ran, because there was no notification from KML. Lee also replied in the chat that he failed because Ning Yuan came. Lee also noticed that Ning Yuan's aura was extremely uncomfortable. After that, at the rock climbing gym, Ning Yuan found out that he knew Lee's whereabouts and asked why Yuan knew he was here. Did historical Yuan specifically come to kill him? Yuan replied, He came to Lee's place just to solve the first two problems. Don't ever appear in front of me or Ran. Secondly, tell me what kind of game this is. Hearing that Lee was a little angry with what Yuan said, which he thought was very childish. Lee also took out the knife and Lee said he would not let his lover die. He wanted to touch his lover's sweet and soft lips again, and did not want to touch the dead lump of flesh. Lee also could not accept Yuan's request because the only option was to win this game. But Yuan says there is no game without system errors, live or die, lose or win. Is it true that there is no other choice? Hearing that Lee was a little surprised, Lee also said, You mean you will find fault in this game? Or do you mean you'll find a way out? Yuan also confirmed Lee's words, but Lee laughed and said that Yuan was daydreaming. They could never run away from this game. To finish this game is easy, namely by killing one of you. Hearing that, Yuan smiles and says he also wants to be like that, but he is looking for uncritical options like killing each other. But Lee shows something. He directly cuts his hand with his knife. Seeing that, Yuan was surprised because Lee's wound immediately healed. Lee also said that one of the rules in this game is that they must injure each other, or rather kill each other. They can't even kill themselves. Do you think this is something a human is capable of? You think you can fight it? We are chess pieces in this bloody chess. Do you insist on that naive delusion of yours? Said Li. Yes, I insist, Ning Yuan replied casually. Hearing that Li got an idea and invited Yuan to a rock climbing competition, if he lost, then he would tell all the information about this game to Yuan. Everything. Yuan can also back out in this race now, but if Yuan loses, then Li will kill him. Yuan just smiled and said, "Okay, let's finish." After that, a little bit of Li's past with his girlfriend, Xuan, is shown. There, Xuan fell asleep sweetly, and Li looked at him with affection. Xuan also said that he was afraid that Li would not like him anymore, but Li replied that Xuan would always be the love of his life. After that, we return to the present. Yuan and Li are ready to compete in rock climbing. They both start rock climbing. Li was very serious and took the lead while New Yuan immediately fell down. Seeing that Li was sure that Yuan was just a beginner, but Yuan did not give up so easily, he immediately got up and started climbing again. Yuan also started to catch up with Li because in this rock climbing competition there are no special rules. Li also stepped on Yuan's arm, but Yuan was still able to climb up as if he didn't feel the pain. Seeing that Li was surprised, how come Ning Yuan cannot feel any pain at all when for a rock climber the hand is the main point? After that, Li took hold of the rope and swung and attacked Ning Yuan by kicking him, but Yuan let go of his grip and dodged Li's kick by dropping himself. Li is almost at the top of the cliff and almost wins his bet with Yuan. But suddenly it turned out that Yuan had tied the rope around Li's feet. Yuan smiled, then Yuan pulled him, making Li fall. When he fell, he had time to remember that his girlfriend was wearing a wedding dress, and they promised that after graduating from college, they would get married. When he fell, Li was impaled by a rock-climbing glass, and Yuan approached him and said, "You're stabbed in the right chest doesn't mean you won't die. Now I'll win by just climbing all the way to the peak, right?" Yuan said. After that, he moved to where his girlfriend Li was, and it turned out that his girlfriend Li had made an appointment with Anne on the roof of the building where Xiao Xiao had jumped to kill himself. Then her boyfriend Li says that their guy is fighting for their safety. Long story short, they discussed their respective boyfriends, which really didn't matter, because this was just girls' chatter. After that, at Yuan and Li's place, Yuan climbed a cliff to win the bet and get information about the KML game. Seeing Yuan climbing, Li got up and pulled out the glass that had stuck in his body and threw it at Yuan, but unfortunately, it didn't hit Yuan, and in the end, Yuan made it to the top of the cliff and won the bet. After that, Yuan came out of the rock climbing gym. There were Ran and her boyfriend Li. Yuan asks why Ran is here. Then Ran replies he is here with his girlfriend Li, and she says that he is Xuan. Realizing Xuan is Li's girlfriend, Yuan says that Li is fine and has just been to the hospital. Hearing that, his girlfriend Li left. Then Yuan asked Ran why Ran could be with her boyfriend Li and replied that her boyfriend Li had asked her to meet and talk about her sadness. Then Yuan explained that he got 3 major points in this KML game from Li. The first point, how we enter this game, is not clear. But this game is generally aimed at lovers, and then a symbol appears on the couple's neck at a certain time. The second point of this game has a distance rule. If we get close and pass a certain limit, then one of us will be cut into pieces. In my opinion, the limit of distance is 4 meters, said Yuan. Then the third point, besides the distance rule, participants will get KML game notifications to get a chance to kill other participants. The winner will live and the loser will die. The winner also gets a prize from the game. Then you can't get out of this game, said Ran. According to Yuan, this game has a strange, mysterious power. According to Yuan, why did Li's girlfriend meet Ran but didn't kill her? There must be something behind it. The best choice should be killing. Hearing that, Ran was shocked. Then Ran saw Yuan's face, which did not usually show such a terrible expression. Then Yuan continued to say that even though he didn't understand human emotions, whether it was for his lover or for himself, when Xuan met Ran and didn't try to do anything to Ran, according to Yuan, it was very abnormal, Yuan said, while putting on a scary face. Hearing that, Ran just silently bowed. After that, the two of them, Yuan and Ran, returned to their respective homes. Long story short, Yuan sleeps and dreams. In his dream, he is met by a very large arm. He says he is amazed by Yuan's behavior in the KML game and gives him an X mark. which he says is a sign of glory. After that, Yuan woke up from his sleep and noticed an X mark on his chest. While muttering, it turns out, this is not an ordinary dream. Then Yuan calls Ron and wants to explain something, but Ron complains why Yuan called her so early. Hearing Ron's complaint, Yuan realized that Ron's mood had started to improve because, according to Yuan, Ron had previously shown an expression he had never seen and wanted to take a picture of it. But unfortunately, he couldn't at that time. After that, Ron told Yuan that she had a dream of a monster that looked like a jellyfish. The jellyfish said that she was a god in the KML game. Hearing that, Yuan was surprised and realized that Ron and himself had a dream about a monster claiming to be a god. Maybe what surprised Yuan was that the monsters in their dreams were different. In Yuan's dream, the monsters he saw were just big arms, while Ron was like a jellyfish. Meanwhile, at the hospital, there is Lee, who seems to have recovered from the wound he got from the rock climbing competition with Yuan earlier. Lee also received a message from his girlfriend, Xuan. He asked how Lee was. Afterwards, Xuan orders Lee to eliminate Ning Yuan immediately. But Lee tells Xuan he is not sure he can eliminate Yuan. This time, don't be fussy. We have no other choice. After that, Lee asked the nurse to make a permit to go home because he had recovered. In another place, Yuan is shown analyzing the events that have been experienced so far on a blackboard. In essence, Yuan still has too little information about KML, so he must continue playing to understand all of this better. Then Yuan planned something. It turned out that Lee was already near Yuan's apartment. But suddenly someone called Lee, and it turned out to be Yuan. Yuan notices Lee's arrival because he has put a tracker on Lee. Yuan waved his hand at Lee and invited him to meet at a place. Before meeting Lee, Yuan also contacted Ron and asked for something to help Ron. After that, Yuan and Lee met at the pedestrian bridge. Lee also said Yuan asked him out, apparently not to kill him. Can't we live peacefully with each other in this KML game? Said Yuan. Life with peace? Yes, I'm actually curious why you know I came to you. Ask Lee. Actually, I put a tracker on you. You know I'm a very careful person, Yuan answered. Hearing Yuan's answer, Lee realizes Yuan seems to be more veteran than him in this game. Lee also said that Yuan should not feel sorry for each other because he is also a coward and does not know who made this game, be it a god or a devil. But Lee is aware that there is no escape except to accept this game. Meanwhile, it is shown Ran and Xuan getting into a taxi. According to Lee, there is nothing wrong and right because he has killed many people. In this game, it might be easier to die than this, said Lee at length. Hearing the conversation further, Yuan could barely understand what he was talking about. But Yuan understood the reason why Lee wanted to kill him. So I hope you will also understand that I don't want to fail this game and die. Goodbye, Li Xin, Yuan said. Then we are shown a taxi passing under Lee, who is on a pedestrian bridge. Meanwhile, in the taxi, Xuan notices a notification. He also realizes that Lee will be cut into pieces. Ron was confused by Xuan's behavior. Xuan was angry with Ron because he was involved in Yuan and Ron's plan. Xuan forced a taxi stop and went out to approach his lover. Ron immediately realized that before the incident, Yuan had contacted her asking for help to take Lee's lover to a coffee shop that had just opened because Ning Yuan had booked a place for them. Yuan also advised Ron to take a taxi there, while Yuan would invite Lee to talk while coaxing her. After that, he returned to Lee and Yuan's place. Lee also used the game reward to exchange. Immediately, Lee's body returned to its original state, which was almost dismembered. Lee also suspected that the taxi that passed earlier had his girlfriend inside. Lee also realized that all of this was Yuan's plan. Forget all that, even though I don't want to say it, but I have to say it. Thank you, said Lee to Yuan. Yuan was surprised to hear that. After that, Lee also told about himself, who used to be a very naughty child. But after meeting Xuan, he changed and experienced various types of happiness. Lee felt happiness would continue forever, but after they entered the KML game, their lives changed. At that time, Xuan was attacked by a man who had a wound on his face, and Lee was unable to help him due to the distance in the rules of the game. The man injured Xuan's face as well as his mentality. From then on, Xuan turned into a body without a soul. But this good thing was over, Lee said. Then Lee said about the game reward that don't use all of it if Yuan gets it later, because according to Lee, the reward can delay death for 3 hours and Lee just used his last remaining 30 minutes. Lee also asked Yuan for help if Yuan met a man who had a wound on his face. "Please kill him," Yuan replied. "If he comes to me, then I will do it." Hearing that Lee was thanked again and wanted to go meet his girlfriend for the last time. "I hope everything will go well for you," while leaving Yuan. Meanwhile, Zhuantenga ran to meet Lee. Then he was about to fall down, but suddenly Lee came to save him, saying, "Don't be careless. You have to learn to take better care of yourself." Seeing that Lee seemed fine, Zhuan was crying, saying, "Nothing bad happened to you, right?" Lee immediately hugged Zhuan. "Stop crying." Then Lee kissed Zhuan one last time. After that, the symbol on Lee's neck also emitted light, and in the end Lee was chopped into pieces. Seeing that Zhuan cried uncontrollably. Seeing Zhuan crying, Yuan took a picture casually. Then Ran approached Yuan and asked, "Did you plan all this to happen, Ningyuan?" After that, the ambulance came and many people came to see. A notification appeared. "Congratulations on completing the first hunting mode successfully." Ran and Yuan also won 3 death bridges, allowing them to be together at that time. The time can also be separated into half an hour. Enjoy your quality time. Resting mode is open. Meanwhile, Ran was on a beach muttering about the time prize she got. Was it used for watching a movie or dinner? But according to Ran, what she got had to sacrifice one person's life, not even 2 people. Shown Zhuan, who seemed unable to live or die. Then Ran said, "What will we become in the future, Ningyuan?" A few days later at a hospital, Ran seemed to want to visit someone. She also confessed that she was her friend to the nurse there. It turned out that there was Yu Xiao lying in a coma. Ran also said that it was Yu Xiao who got them into this game and experienced many things. Even though they didn't know her at all, even Yu Xiao sacrificed her life just for that. Even though Ran and Yuan had known each other since they were little. And what was Yu Xiao's relationship? With Yuan, I have to find out the reasons and answers. Ran opened the cupboard that was there. She found a box. Inside were Yu Xiao's belongings, and there was her cell phone too. Moved to a building. There was someone who was analyzing something. There was also a lot of paper on his desk that said, "Kill my love." That person said, "Enter the KML room." While in the men's room, it was as if the system was welcoming. The system also said, "Welcome head manager." Then this unknown person asked the system to show the results of the game report. We are also shown the results. It turns out that this KML game has entered the 13th round. There were 24 teams participating. 48 people killed 30 people, and 10 teams won 16 people. There are 3 teams with the highest scores. The first-ranked team gets 3 points, the second and third teams get 2 points. The manager was surprised that the team that got first place was a new team, and that team was Ningyuan and Ran. Seeing that the chief manager realized that it was Ningyuan, he smiled and said, "So that's you, Ningyuan. Your enemy is too weak, or you are too strong. I can't wait for this." After that at Ningyuan's place, it seemed Yuan was asleep, but suddenly someone knocked on the door. Yuan looked at his device. Yuan thought it wasn't Ran. He carefully opened the door, and to Yuan's surprise, it was Ran. Ran also muttered why Yuan was taking so long to open the door. After that, Ran entered and saw that there was a photo of Zhuan, who was crying on the wall of the door. Seeing that Ran was a little annoyed, then Ran gave a gift of shoes, which he said while on the road he saw and bought them. Yuan was grateful for the gift. Then Yuan asked Ran whether Ran used the time point prize. Ran said yes. Ningyuan thought that Ran would have something to tell him here, but Ran said nothing. "I just wanted to see you. Is it not allowed?" After that, Ran told Yuan to sit beside her. Then Ran asked Yuan to join hands. Ran also said, "Did Yuan feel the warmth?" Hearing that, Yuan said, "Is it going to be okay? Is Ran on her period?" Ran immediately hit him. Then Yuan continued seriously. "According to human behavior, human personality will not change gradually over time." "Is it because the KML made you insecure and anxious?" asked Yuan. Then Ran replied that she was afraid. Her fear was not because of death. Because she is a child of biology, she realized that death and the birth of a human being are normal. What she was afraid of was that this KML game did not care about life and the precious feelings between each person. Everything feels pointless in this game. For example, the innocent becomes a serial killer, and Xuan becomes insane compared to life without Li. This is something more terrible than death. "This is despair," he said. Ran also realized she couldn't get out of this game, but she wished to die as usual. Ran said, "If one day I somehow change by this game, then kill me." Let me die like I used to be. Please understand my feelings. I really want to see you beside me, even just for a moment, said Ron while crying. Ning Yuan also understood what Ron meant. Yuan said that it was okay to use the time points reward they got. Then Yuan took Ron for a trip. After that, the two of them were in an amusement ride. Yuan and Ran also played a lot of rides. There, Ran thought she was very happy to be taken for a walk while playing, even though Yuan was an emotionless person like a person without feelings. Then Ran wanted to buy something and told Yuan to wait for her. Before Ran left, she saw a balloon seller. She bought it and gave it to Yuan while saying, "Be a good boy, huh? Wait for me here. I'll be right back." After that, Ran came back and wanted to approach Ning Yuan, but Ran saw Ning Yuan being greeted by a small child who also brought a balloon. Yuan smiled at the little boy. Then Ran gave Yuan a drink. Seeing Ran bringing ice cream, Yuan also remembers his past when his mother gave him an ice cream. Yuan suddenly eats Ran's ice cream. Seeing this incident, Ran blushed even more. After that, Yuan took Ran for a walk again, but suddenly a notification sounded. "Congratulations! The participants of the new round of Kill My Love will start soon. Let's find the truth between love and death." The 14th chapter of the game, My Love, begins. Meanwhile, at the swimming gymnasium, there was a swimming championship going on. People were chanting Zhao Jun's name a lot, especially among the girls. Long story short, Zhao Jun won the swimming championship. There it was also seen that someone saw him. Then he left the swimming championship place together with his senior. But his senior secretly took a photo of him from behind. Suddenly that person immediately finished off his senior. After that, at Jun's place, who was being called by someone, it turned out that Jun was also a KML participant because he also had the KML symbol on his neck. On the phone, Jun said that he just received a notification about a new chapter from KML. It seems Jun was talking to his partner. His partner replied that don't worry because of him. Jun also said that he was a little scared, but even so, he will do his best without regrets. I love you, Zichi. Being shown Ning Yuan's past when she was young, there was her mother who was sick. Her mother said that she could not accompany Yuan any longer. Even her mother knew that in Yuan's mind, life and death were the same. But she hoped that Ning Yuan would live on and that one day, Yuan would experience happiness. Ning Yuan also heard what his mother said with an emotionless face. After that, his mother died. Because Yuan remembered his mother's words, he had to stay alive. He ate a piece of bread. But suddenly his relatives came to see Yuan, who could still eat even in front of his dead mother. The relative was annoyed and beat Yuan to a pulp. But Yuan still remembered his mother's words that Ning Yuan should live. Back to the present, in the campus library there is Ran who is reading a book, but suddenly the lecturer greets Ran. Long story short, Ran asked her lecturer about whether humans could see something that wasn't real. The lecturer answered that it was possible. For example, magic games controlling illusions and tricks to deceive the human senses. In fact, the 5 human senses are very easy to deceive. 3-dimensional films and virtual reality glasses are proof that can deceive our eyes. Conditions can be affected in this way, to stimulate our sense of sight, and in the end it becomes an illusion to our eyes. For example, again we also like to be affected when using drugs. Hearing the lecturer's explanation, Ran thought whether what he saw about the jellyfish monster was an illusion. Suddenly, a notification says the participants of the 14th round will start soon. Please go to the destination to be notified. There are rules for this round. First 2 groups of 4 people each. Both biographies of each participant are closed respectively, so you guys have to check their own bio. Thirdly, hurting others is acceptable in this round, but it is forbidden to treat it. Fourth, to win this round, the conditions are kill all members of the opposing team. Please reach the destination within 2 hours. The countdown starts. After that, Ran and Yuan were already at the place where the KML game had been determined. Ran and Yuan spoke by phone, and it seemed that the two of them had planned something, but the problem was that there were many civilians there. Yuan also realized that other participants must have felt the same way. We have to be able to differentiate KML participants. Now we just hope that we are lucky. The countdown is over, and the game is about to begin. Ran and Yuan started to move. Surprisingly, there were many civilians holding hot air balloons. Yuan discussed with Ran over the phone. According to Yuan, Whoever recognizes the KML participants first will easily protect teammates and finish off opponents, of course. And others thinking the same thing, first come, first serve. After that, someone pressed a button and there was an explosion on the balloon held by the civilians. Seeing that Ran and Yuen were shocked, the exploding hot air balloon also made it short of breath. But Ning Yuen did not feel the things that civilians felt. Likewise with Ran. Then Ran saw a child who was crying and helped him. But Yuen said on the phone that Ran should do as civilians do. The point is pretending to be short of breath too, because this is one of the tricks of the enemy. But Ran can't hear Yuen's explanation. Suddenly, someone wearing a clown outfit appears and attacks Ran with a knife. But swiftly Yuen comes and protects Ran, and instead Yuen can injure his leg. The clown said, "So you used the gift of time, huh? Looks like you're the one who will lose suddenly." An arrow shot into Ning Yuen's chest. "The winner has been decided. Go to the beginner's hell." From afar, someone was holding a bow, looking like the clown's partner. He also said, "Too weak, I didn't think that even this time we were facing more boring rookies." Meanwhile, Yuen is seriously injured and makes people angry. The clown wants to run away. Ran also wants to kill the clown, but is prevented by Ning Yuen. According to Yuen, there is no point in killing the clown because there is still the archer. "The more important thing is we have to avoid the archer's attack," said Yuen. Yuen also realized that this time it was his fault for not knowing the enemy's tricks earlier, and the enemy has the upper hand this time. All we have to do is escape from here. After that, Ran saw a doctor and wanted to ask for help treating Yuen's wound, but the doctor didn't even listen to them. Ning Yuen also said it was useless to ask for help because KML would not let anyone interfere in our game. Participants are like animals trapped in the animal area. Killing yourself is the only way out of this situation. Yuen was starting to get dizzy from the loss of blood. Then Yuen continued to say that this is the perfect place for archers to target prey, so we should run away in this crowd and hide. Hearing this, Ran realized that he would put civilians in danger, but Yuen said their lives were their responsibility, and Yuen started walking in the crowd. From a distance, the archer stalked and found Ran and Yuen. He immediately shot his arrow, but it hit civilians. Seeing that Ran and Yuen realized that for the cold-blooded KML participants, he didn't care about someone's life. What they were concerned about was winning the game, and they were just like monsters. Many civilians were hit by arrows. It was clear that Ran and Yuen the archers said, "All your shields are gone." The archer released his arrows, but Ning Yuen was able to avoid them. The arrows flew more and more, but Yuen and Ran easily avoided them, as if they could read their movements. Seeing that the archer was shocked, he realized that Ning Yuen could predict the trajectory of the arrow he released. Now the game would be exciting, he said. Meanwhile, Ran and Yuen had taken shelter in a staircase, but Ran wanted to take Yuen to the hospital as soon as possible. Yuen also said that the enemy team already knows our identity, but we don't know the enemy's identity. Our only hope is the clown that I injured. We have to survive and bet that his partner, the archer, comes out to save him. I'm sure they are lovers. It's impossible to let him die. Ran still wanted to take Yuen to the hospital as soon as possible because Ning Yuen lost a lot of blood, but Yuen said this is our chance to turn things around. "Did you see someone coming?" Yuen asked Ran. Then we were shown the clown crawling. Suddenly Ran saw a car coming toward the clown. Yuen also asked if Ran could see his face. Ran replied that she could not see clearly because it was so far away. Yuen also took out his device and took a photo. It should have been the archer, he said. Yuen also saw the archer's earrings, but Ning Yuen's consciousness started to disappear. "Now you can take me to the hospital," Yuen said while fainting. Meanwhile in the car, the clown asked his partner why he was late saving him. He replied that the opponents this time were not easy to deal with, even though they were just beginners. Moreover, that man, he could injure you. Instead of killing you, he could calculate and avoid children. My arrows. What's more terrifying is that he didn't leave the plaza even after I wounded him. Instead, he waited for me to appear. He's the type of person who will do his best to take every chance he can get to defeat his enemy, even if it puts him in danger. That kind of person is the most terrifying, Zhao Jun. We have to get rid of him as soon as possible, otherwise something worse will happen in the future, said the archer, explaining at length. And here we also know the identity of the clown is Zhao Jun, the athlete swimming, while the archer named Ziqi. After that, in an alley, there was a man who was dragging the girl he had killed. Apparently, They were also KML participants. There was also a man who was asking to be rescued because that person had killed his girlfriend, so he asked to be let go. But the man who turned out to be the man who had a wound on his face said, "So you're the one who smells bad? And the cowardly type of man, a man like you, doesn't deserve to be saved." The man with the wound on his face instantly finished him off. After that, Sin was in Yuan's place, who was dreaming about his mother. Then he woke up and realized he was unconscious for an hour and a half in the hospital. Yuan also bet that his enemy had made a plan while he was unconscious, but suddenly footsteps approached Yuan's room, and a shadow in front of the door was seen. Yuan began to be alert, and it turned out to be Ran. Ran also asked how he was, because according to the doctor, Yuan's wound was very deep, but Yuan asked them to get out of this hospital room immediately. Meanwhile, we are shown Jun, who is already in the hospital, and there is also a man asking the nurse where Ning Yuan's room is. Long story short, the man got it saying, "It's time for us to end this game." They started their plan. Jun was already at Yuan's door, but Jun didn't see Yuan and Ran. He said he called the man earlier. The man also said to continue with the plan because if Yuan is successful, we finish off, then Ran is of no use anymore. After that, Jun immediately threw a bottle bomb on the bed, which he thought was Yuan, and there was an explosion creating panic in the entire hospital. Meanwhile, outside, a man who had previously contacted Jun Tenga noticed the incident. Meanwhile, Yuan seemed to be fine. Yuan had guessed that Jun and his partner will attack him after knowing his identity. Meanwhile, Ran started the plan that Yuan had devised. Ran seems annoyed with Yuan's request, although annoyed she still does it. That's how it is when you fall in love. Ran also entered the CCTV room. There she was asked by the guard. Ran also pointed out that someone was there. The guard looked, and immediately Ran hit him, and knocked him unconscious while Ran apologized. Long story short, Ran hacked the CCTV there. After that, Jun heard that there were no victims to the explosion that was happening. Jun was shocked and thought that Yuan and Ran had run away, but his partner Jun said that he had been standing outside for a long time watching. There was no trace of them. "Let's get out of here first, Zhao Jun." He also thought that Yuan's wound that was hit by the arrow hit his lung, and it took a long time to rest compared to the wound that Jun got. Then he also deduced that Yuan had predicted their arrival and ran away for safety. But is it true only for that reason? Did they do something? I feel like I missed something. But who definitely wants to know our identities? Meanwhile, in a hotel there, Yuan and Ran are keeping their distance. They also checked the CCTV footage they were getting. Yuan also thought the archer was very wise and never showed up. Their only clue was the clown, but according to Ning Yuan, if they could find the clown's identity, the archer's identity would also be revealed. Then Yuan realized that only this man entered the ER. Yuan also asked Ran to find out his identity, but said it was not necessary because he would find out who he was. Ran also explained that he is a very famous person on our campus named Zhao Jun, a third-year student majoring in international trade. He is also one of the best swimmers in our campus. He has also won many trophies after several years, a handsome man and polite who has many fans in our campus. But there is only one problem: in 3 years in our university, he has never once had a girlfriend. Hearing that, Yuan was surprised because how could someone as famous as him not have a partner? After that, in a cafe, there was Jun who was talking about Yuan and Ran who were not in the hospital. Where were they hiding? Long story short, Jun said, "How many time points we have? Can we use this time? It's killing me without you by my side. Don't you also want to hug me, Zichi?" Jun said. We are also shown the figure of Zichi, who is very handsome, and we also know why Zhao Jun has not had a girlfriend for 3 years, because it turns out that Zhao Jun is actually dating Zichi, who is a man. After that, Zichi said that we can't use time points unless we are really pressed. But don't worry, after winning this game, you can do whatever you want, Zichi said. After that, we were shown Ran and Yuan's past when they were little. There was Yuan who was injured due to being bullied by a classmate, seeing that little Ran did not stay silent, and was going to deal with the person who bullied Ning Yuan. But Yuan said he was okay, because Yun did not feel pain or sadness when Yuan was bullied. Ran treats it, even though it's 2 different things. But according to Yuan, it's the same, so don't worry about me anymore. Chen and Ran said Yuan. Hearing that, Ran also said pain, sadness, joy and happiness. Everything I will teach you, so don't say things like that again. After that, Juntenga calls Zichi. They also plan something to get Ran and Yuen out of hiding. Zichi suspects that Ran and Yuen already know Jun's identity and use it to reveal his identity. Meanwhile, at the hotel where Ran and Yuen are hiding, they also find out about Jun and find no photos with a girl who can be suspected as their partner. Ran also asked if Ning Yuen was sure that the clown was Jun. Yuen replied that KML is a game aimed at partners, whereas you and I are a special case. Based on the information we got, Zhao Jun is the only possibility. But from your information, he doesn't have a partner. If we don't confirm it soon, we will die. Hearing that Ran said was Ning Yuen exaggerating, but Yuen said, "Did you guys forget about the rules in this round?" The main difference from the previous round was that the winner had to kill all of them, while in the previous round, even though the enemy knew our identity, only one person was killed in the game. This time it was different in that the rules had to kill everyone. Now our identity is revealed while the other partner is still unknown. They can easily find, map, and hunt us. That means anyone around us is suspicious and can make moves on us at any time. Right now we're both like birds trapped in a nest, waiting to die. If Zhao Jun wasn't a player of this game, it would mean this round was a stalemate, Ning Yuen said as he made a nervous expression. Seeing that, Ran didn't expect Ning Yuen to have a nervous expression, and other people also know that actually Yuen has never felt anything. Is this a subconscious reaction after knowing that death is near? Ran thought. Then Ran told Yuen that don't worry, and put on a face like that. Ran was then going to go buy something to feed. Ran told Yuen to rest. After that, in a park, there was Jun sitting and carrying out the plan that Zizi had drawn up. But suddenly Ran appeared holding a knife at Jun's neck. Ran also said Zhao Junwei came here to confirm something. Hearing a girl's voice, Jun confirmed that it was Chen and Ran. What do you want to make sure? Why don't you start by lowering the knife and chatting casually, said Jun. Ran also said that Jun didn't need to say the answer. Ran wanted Zhao Jun to just give your life here, said Ran. Meanwhile, from a distance there is Zichi watching. He didn't expect Ran to show up, and he also suspects whether Yuen sacrificed Ran just to reveal their identities. Zizi, also while beating his bow arrow at Ran. After that, Ran also said Ning Yuen was very confused. Now he can't tell if you are the clown? I don't care whether it's you or not. The only thing I care about is after I kill you, and Ning Yuen will have a clearer mind, Ran said. Hearing that Jun said whether Ran was crazy, but Ran continued to say that the world has things to protect. While Ran was about to slit Jun's throat, Jun immediately shouted loudly, "Shoot him! He's really going to kill me!" Arrows shot about Ran, but Ranmala smiled as he called and said, "Ning Yuen, you are right. Zhao Jun is really the clown." Seeing that, Jun said, "What's the use of them knowing, because now Ran will die, and tomorrow Yuen will follow." But Ran said, "I don't think so. Even Ning Yuen can win this game alone, and the ones standing at the end are not you guys." "Enough with your boasting," said Jun. When Jun took his staff to strike Ran, meanwhile Zichi was also getting ready to release his arrows. Then the stick and arrows shot towards Ran, but Ran was able to avoid their sticks and arrows. After that, Ran said that you of course choose a good place to kill me, but in fact these trees became my defense. Based on the direction of the arrows, your archer partner should be at 6 o'clock from the tree behind me. Hey, you who has arrows. Ning Yuen told me that you are someone with high intelligence, but the term intelligence isn't quite right. It should be cold-blooded and arrogant, Ran said to Zichi, who was hiding. Hearing that, Zichi was furious and couldn't do anything about it. Ran also feels sorry for Jun that her partner cares more about himself than Jun because Jun's partner doesn't want to show himself. Ran also wanted to go and told Jun to get a lot of rest because he saw his current situation. But suddenly Ran saw Jun's bag on the bench. Ran thought that if she got the bag, then the identity of the archer would be known. Ran did not waste the opportunity. He ran to get it, and Ran managed to take her bag. But unfortunately Ran was hit by many arrows and fell. Jun approaches Ran saying that Ran's destiny is very strong and mighty. But Zichi suddenly says, "Don't kill her first. Play around for a while and get information about Ning Yuen." In short, Jun tortures Ran. But Ran endures Jun's torment and doesn't say a word about Yuen. Because it was no longer possible to find information about Yuen, Jun also ordered Zichi to kill Ran. From a distance, Zichi was ready to release his arrows. The arrows shot towards Ran. Suddenly, the sound of a motorbike sounded. It turned out to be Yuen. Before the arrows hit Ran, Yuen managed to save Ran and ran away with Ran, who was injured. Seeing that Zichi didn't stay still and shot his arrow. But it was a pity that Ning Yuen had easily dodged it with his motorcycle. Yuen and Ran managed to escape and get their bag. Things are starting to turn around. It seems that Mai and Jun's identities will be confirmed, and Ning Yuen really sacrificed his partner. He's really cold-blooded. Long story short, Yuen and Ran were already in their hotel where they were hiding. Yuen treated Ran, who was injured. Then Ran realized from her fainting and saw Yuen, who was bandaging his whole body. Yuen also said that Ran was too rash. If Ning Yuen didn't know Ran's GPS location, then Ning Yuen would not be able to save her in time. Then Ran asked Yuen that Yuen use the time point reward for the last time right. Yuen also agreed and said there was still 15 minutes 36 seconds remaining. Hearing that Ran apologized for previously using the time point reward without Yuen's permission. But Yuen says that the reward of time points is nothing compared to confirming Zhao Jun's identity. Yuen also thanked Ran for her hard work. Surprised to hear that after that, Yuen said that he had broken into Jun's device, but could not find any information, and it was also true what Ran said earlier that Jun had never been close to any woman. Yuen was showing the photos to the person in Jun's device, but strangely, there were 2 devices inside, one of which didn't belong to Jun. So whose was it? Ask Ran. Ning Yuen replies that it belongs to Li Jian from the archery club that Zichi killed while taking a picture of him secretly. But a few days ago he died, and Yuen wasn't sure whether it had anything to do with Jun or not. Yuen also finds out that in the archery club there are no female students who are very close to Jun. According to Yuen, he has not been able to discover Jun's connection with the archery club. But suddenly Ran realized after seeing the photos on Jun and Li Jian's gadgets. Seeing in each of their galleries there is a photo of Zichi, Ran also has a strange feeling, but Yuen says maybe that person is a close friend of the 2 of them. But Ran sees the light. Jun looks at her. Not like a friend. Is it possible that Zhao Jun is gay? Ran said. Hearing that, Yuen was surprised. You mean Zhao Jun's lover is a boy? Yes, the KML rules only say couples, but they don't specifically say only couples of the opposite sex. Yuen also began to realize, if that's the case, then I will be able to reveal his identity. He is a talented archer from the archery club. The sky looked overcast. Seen in a fighting arena, there had been a fight between 2 men. One of the men knelt on one knee and he thrust his sword into the ground and lowered his head. He was standing right in front of him. The man wonders where the man came from. He has no equal. He is here to prove to everyone that he is the best in the world. The man raised his head, his face dripping with sweat. He looked at him. The man was surprised that he met such a powerful warrior. The man decided that it was definitely not without reason that he had decided to participate in this fight. His goal in joining this battle is to prove himself to be the strongest in the world. But his joy didn't last long. He decided to attack. He wanted to attack with a sword and shouted that a hot battle was about to begin. The man just laughed at his opponent's words. He hit him with a sword in response, and the enemy was defeated. He did not understand what kind of pathetic gamble it was. The man spat out blood from his mouth and looked at his enemy. He saw that he had an extremely fast reaction. He fell down realizing that the difference in their blows was only a millimeter. He stood behind and looked at the stands. The crowd laughed and cheered for the instant hit. The hosts were happy to tell him he didn't take a single hit, and it was another clean win. The attack just now happened in the blink of an eye. In an unknown year, with the advent of the virtual reality crossover system, the world underwent major changes. Innerverse, which has a variety of different content in the world concept. The system was created and caused global changes. The world of virtual reality has a variety of content and concepts from around the world. He is able to open the user to the world of the past, the future, the world of fantasy, as well as the responsibilities of work, education, art, economics, and other types of human activity. As a result, this virtual reality has replaced many things from the real world. Among the many virtual reality worlds is the world of one MMORPG called Heroes of Time called Hot. In this game, there are heroes who appear in the most difficult moments. Usually they are called players, so that people get the opportunity to visit a huge fantasy world with the help of various contents, in the form of raid bosses and various arena modes, siege battles, and other things. And this game is very popular among mankind from all over the world. Interverse is the center of everything for those who love Heroes of Time's games. They dream of being the best as pro gamers, on the day when the students are still at school. The students sat and discussed watching humans from the planet. A man told Lee Hyun-jung that he watched Planetary's broadcast yesterday. Another man came up to the guys sitting at their table and jokingly said that he should win in the final. One of the people who approached Lee Hyun-jung and said that he had just signed up for the Human of the Planet and asked Lee Hyun-jung to give him an autograph. Incredible skill like that wasn't enough for him to log in. Lee Hyun-jung in Game of Time Heroes is a black skull. He reached the final of the competition hosted by the planet's most famous human streamer. Among the viewers, Lee Hyun-jung is the most interesting, not only in the game, but also in reality. He has a sharp mind and good athletic body above all. The man was born from a rich family, so he had everything. He was also lucky with his tall appearance. Lee Hyun-jung thought he was absolutely perfect not only in games, but also in cyberspace. Not so much. Lee Hyun-jung turned to one of the men and said that the sync speed measured by professional programs was 200%. He asked the man if maybe they were watching other people's different worlds. He asked for clarification. If 200% sync is almost programmer level, synchronization rate is an index that shows the frequency of synchronization with avatars used in the virtual reality crossover. It is known that 100 sync speeds are responsible for 100 senses of reality. Also, high indicators indicate that the player may experience psychic phenomena. One person said that Lee Hyun-jung was quite fast in the arena. Dan asked if Lee Hyun-jung saw everything in slow motion. Lee Hyun-jung explained that this is not entirely true. He just has feelings that are manifested a little deeper than real life. The man said that people who are really lucky are always lucky, and that the world is very unfair. The man says that there are players who can do nothing, no matter how hard they try. He asked someone whose back he was sitting on. The young man was seen kneeling, and the man pressed his head and said that he had to understand what would happen if he fell. He replied that he understood everything perfectly. The man standing next to him said that he shouldn't be doing this in class, otherwise problems might arise, but the guy sitting in knows. He said that his mother was on the parent committee, so there should be no problem. He said that if someone asked, they could say they were just playing, and even the teachers wouldn't say anything against it. Suddenly, Lee Hyun-jung pushed Park Noah under the table, and he fell. The man sitting on his back also fell over and became very angry. He started calling him a bastard and screaming that he almost broke his neck because of him. She asked if he wanted to kill her by accident, and she will regret it now. Lee Hyun-jung added that the youth who fell on the floor was just a pitiful person, a loser in life. Sweat dripped down his face. He gritted his teeth in anger and clenched his fists. His glasses fell from his face to the floor. Lee Hyun-jung believes that this is how this cruel world works. Everything here revolves according to the rules of natural selection. The special rule of the strong is to look down on the weak. Unfortunately, the weak couldn't refuse. That was why he was weak, even with the development of technology and many new entertainments. The most interesting thing was still looking down on the desperate face of a loser. Lee Hyun-jung's last battle and his final opponent was a shooter who could change classes depending on who he was fighting. Lee Hyun-jung was sure that for the finals, they would choose some destroyers who would overcome them and kill. Users who have multiple classes outperform those with only one class. In terms of physical data and speed of analyzing the situation, Lee Hyun-jung is connected to the game. And press from now on, we've seen the real face of a loser. The audience cheered. They were all looking forward to the final fight. The presenter reports on the most popular competition among all viewers. Humans of a planet where they choose the best and strongest in one-on-one duels. And now, the final begins. The host says that the competition rules are exactly the same as in the arena of the game Heroes of Time. The participants have the same item-level indicators and general stats. The only difference explained by the presenter is in the class of participants and skills related to strategy struggles and physical data. Is the best entertainment. The host asks the audience to greet the players. The first player is a specialist in assassination who did not take a single hit in the final battle, Black Skull. Black Skull, who is famous for using assassin abilities to attack quickly and dodge to defeat his opponents, but in reality, in real life, he is just an ordinary high school student. The presenter said that now the Black Skull already has such quality. Then in the future, he can definitely become an excellent gamer. Players with ARC nicknames are announced as the next finalists. He is the owner of a distinct class which he uses to gain a strategic advantage. The host curiously asks which class the player will choose for the final battle. With Black Skull, the player chooses a mage class, which greatly surprises the presenter for the battle with Black Skull. ARC chose a mage class that was weaker than an assassin. The host asks Stark if this is the next strategy. The magician replied that this was not a strategy at all. It seemed to him that an assassin of such a level could easily be defeated by a magician. The host said that it was a very unexpected provocation and asked if ARC wanted to taunt Black Skull in this way. Then the host announces that it's time to start the final competition. The magician turned to the opponent and said that he had heard that Black Skull was a famous genius gamer from high school, and he added that he was also a high school student. But then, with a sneer, he asked why this skull mask did the Black Skull have a transitional age. The black skeleton was angry. He decided that he was the opposite of trying to attract attention in this way. So he mocked his appearance. The battle begins. The magician hits the first opponent. ARC used magic and ran. The black skeleton chased after him. An ordinary wizard versus an assassin. What is the goal of the end of this battle? He didn't understand what his enemy was doing, whether he really hoped to win by shooting magic from afar. Maybe the witch just decided to make fun of the Black Skull's appearance. The Black Skull was clearly angry. He used mage skills and confidently moved forward. The magician realized that his opponent wasn't that weak since he was able to dodge all of his attacks from such a distance. He wasn't sure if he should get closer. Black Skull confusedly, he didn't understand why the enemy was trying to approach him now. Maybe he really wanted to taunt him. Then the Black Skull decided to attack from behind. He wanted his opponent to regret this battle, but the mage was far more stupid. He decided to set a trap for the Black Skull, although he wasn't entirely sure that the enemy would fall into it. It was so easy for the magician to say that in this game, he could never be led by emotion, and suddenly turn to the Black Skull. The magician specially approaches the blitz to trap his enemy. The host escalated the situation. He described the course of the entire battle and reported that the Black Skull had fallen into the magician's trap. The Black Skull fell to its knees. The magician came and said that he used the skills of all shooting classes and asked if Black Skull thought that he didn't know the skills of an assassin. The magician said that Black Skull knocked out his very pathetic clean winning record, and then he added that now he still doesn't have to worry about that, because he had a bigger problem because it was very embarrassing for an assassin to lose to a dark magician. The Skull was very angry. He said that the magician was only lucky once, and he had started to act arrogantly. He asks if the magician hopes to beat him with just one punch. In an instant, he stood up and disappeared straight from the arena. The host said it was an amazing skill of an assassin. His highest skill is dark attack. Black Skull was angry and wanted to defeat his enemy at any cost. But the witch was not afraid. He knew very well about the assassin's invisibility skill, though he considered it some kind of fraud since the enemy was invisible and unheard of. But he also has a thing for Black Skulls. He decided to show the enemy his skill. With the supreme power of the energy burst, the host said that the magician had again used the unexpected trick he had decided to perform in response to his enemy with a long attack. Both sides used skills capable of inflicting fatal wounds all at once. The only thing that matters here is whose attack will be the first. The host said that the magician was in a disadvantageous position for him. Will he be able to react to the assassin's attack seen during the attack? Black Goals will not tolerate insults in his direction from anyone. He decided to destroy his enemy, and bring the synchronization speed to the limit and make the enemy feel that time is slowing down. His synchronization skills grew to 130 times, then to 180. Interverse synchronization levels are created simultaneously with the appearance of the intercept. It is an unknown system, which is little known, but all players who reach high sync speeds say the same thing. As soon as the sync reaches the limit, time seems to stop. The magician stands and waits for the attack, and at the same time also increases the synchronization speed, and even exceeds the indicator. Black Skull decides to attack the enemy, but the magician reacts in time and manages to avoid the blow. Magicians say that this game is quite amazing. Sometimes there are moments when it seems that time has stopped. Now he felt that he could do anything. He said that the life of a loser is a pretty sad thing. Black was confused. He did not understand what was happening. He lost. Lee Hyun-jung sat there and was angry. He couldn't believe his defeat. He threw away his helmet and started screaming that some freak could beat him. Indeed, the world rotates. According to the rules of natural selection, the special right of the strong is to look down on the weak, and the weak cannot fight back. Because they are weak. But this is only about reality. And after all, no one has ever said that a loser in real life is a loser in cyberspace. This is exactly the arc Logan. He is a loser in real life who is bullied by classmates, but in cyberspace he is a complete genius. He left the game and thought about how he wanted so badly to see what kind of face the Lee Hyun-jung he had just won. He will walk with her tomorrow. This is a story about a man who in real life is considered a loser. A professor is seen sitting in his office trying to find a suitable person on the list. The assistant brought him a cup of coffee and asked the professor what he thought about it. The professor took the coffee and politely thanked Assistant Kim. Assistant Kim asks the professor why he still can't choose who to recommend in the academy. The assistant said he respected the professor because he believed that everyone should have an equal opportunity. He understood very well that the professor was trying to find those who were limited by circumstances and unable to make their own way. Kim asked if he could recommend one candidate to the professor. He tells the professor that he was watching the stream yesterday and found one specimen that was odd. It was a high school student. The assistant asked if this student was suitable for the position the professor required and handed him a tablet with information. The assistant went on to say that he encountered one very strange moment on stream. He secretly tried to measure the sync speed and he came out with some unprecedented indicators. The professor is very surprised that the synchronization of packets is not more than 200. The professor suggests that some kind of law program may appear on the intersection. The assistant said that no one knows for sure whether there is such a program or not. The professor asked Assistant Kim if he had any meetings scheduled today. The assistant asks if the professor wants to contact this player. The professor replied that it was necessary to check everything thoroughly to see if there was such an indicator of synchronization. Meanwhile, Park Noah is still suffering from beatings at school. Lee Hyun-jung was furious after his defeat yesterday and decided to take his anger out on Park Noah. He kicks Noah. While other people stood by and saw Lee Hyun-jung was furious that some pathetic orphans decided to contradict him. The guys were standing behind, and one of them asked the others what happened to Lee Hyun-jung because he never dirty his hands. Before another man answered that Lee Hyun-jung lost his last fight yesterday. The man added that Lee Hyun-jung's goal was to become famous as an amateur and enter the academy, but now his untouchable and undefeated status is completely broken. Moreover, the man said that Lee Hyun-jung's opponent in the final said that he also studied in high school. So now Lee Hyun-jung is also deprived of the title of brilliant school player. Others said that in this respect Lee Hyun-jung was quite understandable. Lee Hyun-jung looked at Park Noah and paused for a moment. He remembered that yesterday in the finals, the player had told him that the life of a loser was quite horrible. But those are his words. Lee Hyun-jung remembered exactly saying the same thing. Was Park Noah, this Lee Hyun-jung started getting angrier, but suddenly Park Noah started apologizing to him. She said she didn't understand what she had done. Was she wrong? But she's still very sorry for him. Lee Hyun-jung was shocked and decided that those words were just a coincidence, and there was no way he could lose to this loser, Park Noah. He finally stops hitting Noah and goes about his business, then calls his friends. After they followed Lee Hyun-jung, Park Noah was left lying on the floor because he was bruised. At first he held his head with his hands, and then he let go of his hands and started smiling smugly at his victory. He was well aware that Lee Hyun-jung was very angry because of yesterday's defeat, and was very happy because of that. Park Noah clenched his fists and said that Lee Hyun-jung deserved it. He himself, after entering high school, Lee Hyun-jung and his gang did nothing but bully Park Noah, even though a virtual reality was created in the world. So many different entertainments have been created, but those who like to mock others for some reason. Park Noah didn't have a specific reason why he chose Lee Hyun-jung as his target. He just wished he could fight him in the game, and that's how it all started. Park Noah is just tired of losing to everyone all the time, but he never harbored hope that his everyday life would change one bit. He was well aware that in this reality, he could never keep up with Lee Hyun-jung. His behavior is just an attempt to relieve stress, hence his disgusting school life continues again. The teacher came to the school office. He said today is the 10th, so number 10 is Park Noah. Park Noah stood up and looked at the teacher. All students turned and saw Park Noah. He was covered in blisters, and his clothes were badly wrinkled. The teacher looks at the men in surprise and then awkwardly asks if Park Noah can tell everyone what is the difference between R and VR. Park Noah was disappointed by this teacher's behavior, because he pretended that nothing had happened again. Is this all a teacher can do by looking at him? Appearance Park Noah thinks that his teacher has grown up. Why can't he protect him? Why doesn't she ask what happened to him and why he looks like that? But deep down, Park Noah knew very well that it was all because Lee Hyun-jung's parents were rich. Park Noah has always known that reality is too evil. When Park Noah enters the game again, he kills monsters. They attack him in droves, but he gets over it because of that. Park Noah decides that he doesn't need to worry about some kind of reality because primarily the stage is the opposite virtual reality here. Him killing monsters gets a lot of points, and because of this everyone gets stronger only in the virtual world. Can Park Noah know he thinks nothing and is always himself? Park Noah fought monsters and said that melee weapons were great anyway. In the game Heroes of Time there are 3 main categories: gunner, tank, and assistant classes among all. He can choose a class that belongs to any of the categories and play the level of the class that needs to be raised. It is impossible to change the category, so the choice must be taken very seriously. Park Noah chose the shooter class because he thinks shooters are very important in the game. Park Noah is looking through his money in the game. He saw that he had accumulated enough, and if he could exchange them, then he wouldn't have to worry about money for the next month. One of the reasons why opposite virtual realities are called worlds apart is because the currency used in the world is different from reality. This is the same as a divisible gold coin. But the cool thing is that this gold can be exchanged for cash. But unfortunately, only adults can do this, and Park Noah is still a high school student. Therefore, Park Noah has decided that for now, he will only save money and then be able to spend his money. From behind, someone tried to attack the Ark with a spear, but he managed to react in time and dodged the blow. He saw the assailant and asked who he was. In general, the man asked why Park Noah immediately dodged. He could have hit him. Then the guy asked if Park Noah would work normally. There was a gang with the guy, and Park Noah asked who they all were and why they would attack him so soon. The man replies that they have a Park Noah coin case. He asks if Park Noah can let them PK fairly and die peacefully. The man asks his gang member who is responsible for the final punch, and says to do everything right, otherwise if he does anything wrong he will regret it a lot. The man in charge of the last attack said he would do everything as the commander gave the orders. Park Noah looked at the gang in surprise and thought that the man standing in front of him was the commander of several zombies. Zombies are called gamers, who have been hired by private companies. Park Noah heard that they were required to bring a certain amount of gold or items to the company every day, where the company then paid them money. There were even rumors that in life these players were some kind of debtors or criminals serving prison terms. Among these people there is a so-called killer with bloodshot eyes. One of them just looked at Park Noah and said he would kill him. But Park Noah said they decided to attack the wrong person. He asks if they really think that he will lose to them and points his sword at them. Someone from the gang said that Park Noah was apparently very confident in his abilities. Dan asked if Park Noah would be able to fight them. It must be the gang commander saying that all but one person here are the most average players, and if Park Noah kills the regular players, he will be a killer himself. And in case of death in a duel, he will be given a hefty fine. He asked if Park Noah knew this, and asked if it wouldn't be better if Park Noah just died without fighting. Now Park Noah understands why they only make one kill, so they think to beat him. But if one of them must be suffering, then what should Park Noah do? He decided that he would only win. Park Noah runs, and the gang yells at him that there's no point in him running away. They chase him, and someone wants to punch Park Noah, but he is able to block the punch. Park Noah pushed his foe away, but at that moment another man plunged a knife into his shoulder from behind. Park Noah hid his face in pain and clenched his teeth. The man said that Park Noah should stop fighting and just give up. He had delayed them at work. Park Noah stood with his head down and held his injured shoulder. He didn't understand why this always happened to him. Why is he so unlucky? The commander orders the gang to deal with the victims as soon as possible. All zombies go into the crowd with enough garden noise. Still don't understand why everyone wants to mock him. Although perhaps all these people did not even suspect that they were mocking him. Park Noah. Remember Lee Hyun-jung at that time one day? They just met eyes at some point, and Lee Hyun-jung asked why Park Noah was looking at him, and that was the only reason for bullying. But Park Noah knew that if he killed ordinary players, he would become a criminal and could lose even more. Wouldn't it be better than just getting fined and losing just 10% of what he had? But Park Noah decides that he must not back down, at least here in virtual reality. He decides to fight his enemy because his opponent is just a bunch of pathetic zombies. Park Noah decides that he will just kill them all and try to survive until the killer status time runs out. Park Noah attacks the enemy and says that he will make them regret this battle. In this world, Park Noah is not a weakling here. He is really a genius. He scatters the zombies one by one and finally gets to the gang commander being hit with a sword, but the enemy managed to hold him off. The commander asks why Park Noah is surprised if he really thinks he is on the same level as other zombies. Then the commander says that Park Noah has now become a murderer and asks what he will do now. A black crow flew across the sky. He landed on the hand of his master, who was standing on top of the mountain peak, and looked around. The master is the same professor who was looking for Mr. Noah. The crow shows the owner of the picture what he saw in flight, and Park Noah was there. The owner of the crow said that he finally found the player he was looking for. Meanwhile, Park Noah is still fighting the zombie gang commander. Park Noah doesn't understand what kind of man he is. Where did such powerful strength come from? The commander says that Park Noah is pretty good in battle, too. He noted that with a single spear and without any pack of armor, he was able to dodge all attacks and send everyone to respond with one punch. Then he got angry and shouted that because of the arc, he just had more work for today. He goes to attack Park Noah and asks if Noah has stocked up with items. Park Noah stood up and watched the enemy quickly approach him. He clearly saw the enemy attack. He has an unusual technique. The enemy finally approached and followed with an attack. Park Noah blocked it, but something went wrong. Park Noah doesn't understand why this is happening. Enemy looks at him and asks what is the matter, and where has bow speed gone. Park Noah didn't know why the commander's attack was stronger than his reaction. He perfectly saw all the attacks, but didn't have time to react to them. This is called the measurement of the character's strength, which is controlled not only by the physical shell, unlike the arena, where skill is important. In the PK field, whose level does not change, there are different elemental variables such as item skill level and so on. This means that it is possible to defeat the enemies here. It even has basic indicators. Commander says that Park Noah has pretty good skills, but judging by his level, he is still a schoolboy. He tells Park Noah that he should go and do his homework better and call him baby. He wanted to hit Noah with a sword, but someone else stopped his punch. It was a man with a raven. The commander asked the man who he was. The man apologized for coming in and said that he also had something to do with Park Noah. A man turned around and looked, and then said that he wanted to ask directly whether Park Noah had used some illegal programs in the game. At the last match petition, he participated in it. Park Noah was shocked and asked again what illegal program meant. He said with a bit of annoyance that he had never used such a program. Zombie Commander got angry and said that the professor dared not enter into their showdown. Then the process of hitting him, and the commander flew back. There was a shock on his face. The professor leaned his sword back down the commander's throat and asked Dark whether he really achieved 400% sync without the help of a special program. Park Noah was surprised by this question, because he didn't even know anything about sync at 400%. He asked the professor if he really had 400% sync. The professor wonders if Park Noah is faking it because during the last hit, his sync indicators gave a slightly over 400% mark. He also added that this indicator is almost a record. He was surprised that Park Noah said he didn't use a program to inflate the numbers. Park Noah stood there and didn't know what to say. To measure sync cost money, so he never tested it. The professor saw that Park Noah didn't, and thought whether this person really didn't know his own sync percentage. Suddenly, a world-controlled time game hero appears. He said that he came on a call and asked if there was someone here who was suspected of using an illegal program. Park Noah stood in amazement and didn't understand why the game manager was here. The manager names the player suspected of using an illegal program and says he will start an assessment. The assistant asked Park Noah to do a dubious act. Once again, Park Noah became very angry because of the suspicion and shouted at the manager that he knew nothing about the illegal program and advised him to better punish the killers of other players. The assistant said that in the game, heroes of time killing players is one of the rules in where a fine can be issued, and this is not a violation. The assistant also added that Park Noah should consider the fact that when using illegal programs, his in-game account may be permanently banned. Park Noah started to get angrier about how his account got permanently banned. If he has never used illegal programs, the professor said that Park Noah must prove that he is right and not use any illegal programs. Park Noah took out his sword and looked at the professor. The zombie commander, who was still standing behind, said that now he understood why Park Noah had lasted so long. He added that he was referring to Park Noah, who apparently used the ban program. The zombie commander asked the professor if he will still meddle with him. The professor replied that he would not bother him. Then the commander said that he would deal with these illegal immigrants himself, but in return, all the items will be his. He goes on the attack. Park Noah parried the first punch and said he had never measured sync percentage in his life. He just thought that this indicator was much higher for him than the other players in the school. Park Noah heard that Lee Hyun-jung's synchronization indicator was 200%, but the indicator was twice as high as 400%. So far, there has been no player with such data, and Park Noah is the first to have such data sync. Park Noah smiled because he was the only one in the world who had such an indicator. What the commander saw. He's in shock, and asks why she's smiling like that. At that moment, Park Noah realized that he was hypersensitivity special synchronization, his reaction concentration. After he saw that the enemy's attacks were too slow, Park Noah decided that then he should try to force out all the thrills to the maximum. If only he could predict how his opponent would move. Park Noah noticed that the opponent was aiming for his left shoulder and dodged the punch. The packet synchronization indicator had reached a huge number, and even the assistant was surprised by such an indicator. Park Noah noticed a vertical right kick and dodged it. He stabbed his opponent. The commander did not understand what was happening. It looks like Park Noah is guessing all of his next shots and seems to be preparing for them in advance. Is it possible that he saw Park Noah in the future attack the enemy again? But this time, the enemy was able to mount a defense, while the assistant said that the use of illegal programs is not confirmed. He was horrified that Park Noah had reached the maximum sync rate. The professor doesn't believe Park Noah has passed 400%. And even being able to over 500%, the professor wondered if a special player had appeared. While Park Noah defeats his enemy, the zombie gang commander lies on the ground. Park Noah turned to the professor and walked towards him. He asked the professor if he could prove to him that he wasn't using an illegal program. The professor apologized for suspecting Park Noah. Then he said that he came to meet Park Noah to make him a tempting offer, but Park Noah immediately said that it was not worth it. He added that thanks to the professor, he realized that he was a special being. In this universe world, he has the feeling that he can really beat any opponent, and Park Noah says that killing players is not an offense, and says the professor's weapon looks quite expensive, and then asked if the professor would mind if he took it himself. The professor says that Noah still needs to deal with assassin status, and offers to talk later. Then the professor hit Park Noah. Park Noah wonders why he didn't foresee this, as he has a high sync rate. Park Noah understood that he could not die, because he had many necessary items in his inventory. The professor says that if Park Noah wants to return his lost items due to a fine, then he should try to find them. Park Noah is lying on the ground and the professor says he will wait for his call and leaves. Simultaneously, with the opening of the virtual reality universe, various technological researches experienced significant developments. One of them is robot engineering. Modern science has made such strong leaps in development that robotics has advanced significantly. Gradually, artificial intelligence is obtained. It progresses until AI technology approaches human understanding and its robotic body becomes more suitable. Its development that can mimic human behavior is getting better and better every day, and its mechanical body becomes a much more functional robot, capable of replacing the jobs of many people. As a result, the robot became so popular that it began to be used, even in an ordinary family. There is one robot named T1. This robot has been the guardian of one boy and his family, at the same time for 10 years, and boy is Park Noah. The robot that was standing in front of the crying Park Noah, he couldn't hide his surprise. Park Noah comes home beaten up every time, but he never showed any leniency. Park Noah asked the robot what to do. The robot has no idea what exactly is tormenting the boy, maybe violence or intimidation. What the robot felt as if something was boiling inside the boy's robe about experiencing a strange feeling for the first time. So he tried to analyze the boy, and then quickly found the answer. This feeling that boys experience is called anger. He needed to find someone who could appease this anger. The robot wonders who caused this emotion in the boy. Park Noah looked at his robot, and with tears in his eyes said that he had lost all the items in the game. The robot says that in this case it is worth beating Park Noah. First he says no, that not only did he spend all the money in virtual reality, but he also lost the gold coins he collected for exchange, and wanted to spend when he grew up. The robot is very angry. He said that someone was saving electricity and could not even dream of a full charge, and Park Noah wasted all the money. Unless the robot says no, that he shouldn't enter this virtual reality. Park Noah sadly replied that it was his investment in the future. The robot lowered its mechanical head and said there was no need to waste time on this game addict. Then the robot says that Park Noah should just do as he is told, and then he will be able to return the items, and his goal is he just needs to find someone with the logs and hide in the bush, and then he will be able to return everything. Park Noah sat down and clutched his head, saying that it was all money too. If they were exchanged, he wasn't sure if the professor would give back everything he took. The robot replies that if the professor doesn't return everything to him, then Noah will have to pick up his pants and think about it, and says he never begged anyone before. He asked the robot what he should do now. The robot stood up and looked at the floor. He asked how Park Noah could live to such an age and never ask anyone for anything. In this case, the robot decides that it should tell Park about the request technique contained in its database. But before that, he warned Noah that this was a very high level of complexity. Noah looked at his guardian with determination and waited. He was told about the high-level request technique. Park Noah finally contacted the professor, and they were able to meet. Park Noah is standing on his head, and the professor is standing behind him. The professor realized that it was a big bow. Park Noah said that he had heard that this was the best way to ask for anything. The professor said that Park Noah could wake up and that he would return his things to him no matter what. Park Noah jumped up and sat on his knees in front of the professor. Professor said that he would return all, but of course not unconditional. He asked Park Noah to answer some of his questions and show him. Some of the points written in the terms of the agreement are that the first party promises to give all the lost items and gold coins to the second party. Party B promises to answer all questions of Party A. The third party promises to only tell the pure truth. And fourth, that Party B cannot escape until the party has finished asking the questions written below. That in case of breach of contract, the party who breached the terms of the contract loses all available items and gold coins. Park Noah looked at the contract in surprise with great attention and read every word. He was well aware that if he didn't answer honestly, he could lose all of his items and gold coins. Actually, in this world, there is a kind of secure transaction between two parties, which with the help of the system is concluded in the form of a contract, and this is a very useful thing. Park Noah read the contract and found absolutely nothing in its contents that would be detrimental to himself. He also said that he also had many questions for the professor. Park Noah asked if he could ask the professor questions according to the same rules. The professor agreed that Park Noah could probably also have a lot of questions for him, so he wouldn't mind answering them. An additional condition is added to the contract. The first additional condition is that he undertakes to answer all questions of Party B, and the second condition is that the party promises to tell the pure truth. The professor immediately returned all of his items and gold coins to Park Noah. Park Noah is very happy to get all his lost things back. The professor advises against asking questions in turn, and Park Noah agrees. Professor asked his question first. He asked Park to know if he must be in high school. Park Noah thought that even if he answered this question vaguely, the professor still couldn't guess whether he was lying or not. Park Noah looks at the professor with a smirk and says that this isn't right. Then all that has been lost, he doesn't understand how it happened. The professor held his head and said that the interval of the virtual reality world that uses the waves emitted by the brain, he can easily recognize where it is and where the truth is. Park Noah said it was true when he was a high school student, and then looked at the professor and asked whether he can collect his things. The professor said it was Noah's turn to ask him questions. Park Noah was sitting and collecting all his things scattered on the ground, and asked why the professor was clinging to him. The professor replies that he wants to get to know Park Noah better, and he wants to invite Noah to his game in the team. He said Park Noah could think of it as a small interview. Park Noah turned around and looked at the professor in surprise, and then asked the team what kind of game. He asked what kind of game team the professor was talking about. But the professor doesn't answer. He says it's Park. Noah's turn has ended, and now he will ask a question. He looked at Noah carefully, and asked what the man wanted to do in the future. Park Noah thought that this man was just asking stupid questions, and replied that he wanted to earn a lot of money. Park Noah Money put his raincoat on himself and asked the team professor what kind of thing he told before. The professor replies that he's talking about a team that will play in the Fairyland Academy League. Park Noah was very surprised by the words about the Fairyland Academy League. Does Professor really this mean same academy? The professor announces that it's time to ask the next question and directly asks if Park Noah likes to play games. Park Noah replied, of course he likes to play games. Right now he was thinking that everyone who wanted to become a pro player dreamed of entering the Sanjin Academy. This could only mean one thing: this man was somehow connected with the Fairyland Academy League, as all his subjects were in place, which meant he wasn't lying. Park Noah thought that he never even dared to dream of entering Fairyland Academy. Would he really be able to enroll there? The professor asked if it was a question, apparently without knowing it. Park Noah asked the last one. Loudly, the professor decides to answer this question and says that Park Noah will be able to enter the Fairyland Academy because he thinks he is quite suitable for this. Then the professor announced the next question again. He asked about the fight with an opponent far superior to Park Noah in every way. He asks if she has fighting spirit. Thanks to that, he was prepared to fight even someone who might lose him. Park Noah answered with a happy smile. That's so, but for some reason at this moment Park Noah remembered Lee Hyun-jung's words, which he didn't understand. Why is it happening now? Park Noah knows for a fact that the answer to this question is yes, but somehow Park Noah thinks if he answers yes, it could be considered a lie, and so he suddenly exhaled to himself and said no. Park Noah said that he didn't want to participate in the battle if he wasn't completely sure of victory. He said that only he would be worse than the misery floundering at his feet, and he doesn't want to be in a position and a situation where he will depend. Park Noah went on to say that maybe such a contest doesn't mean the end of the world. Duels can continue until the player surrenders. The professor didn't listen to what Park Noah said and said that every year there's a competition for all the students in the Fairyland Academy. Park Noah opened his eyes wide and listened attentively to the professor. Professor tells about many teams led by Professor. It was he who set the goal of winning in order to become the representative of the Fairyland Academy. It is said that many students are eager to hone their skills, but most of them lose their compromises and forget their dreams. So sad is that. The professor says that only a few have survived. The professor takes the sword and says that they can keep their dream only by trampling others, and then among the survivors only one MVP will appear in the team. The professor observed Park Noah closely and asked if Park Noah was sure he could survive in such a place. Park Noah admits to himself that he doesn't really like losing either, which is why he chose a game where he was completely confident in himself and his ability to attack Lee Hyun-jung. After all that time, he knew very well that he could beat Lee Hyun-jung. But in real life, there are too many differences between them, and there is only one reason Park Noah can't stand against Lee Hyun-jung and his gang. If he did not stand on the battlefield from the start, then he could only justify himself, that he is not a loser. But Park Noah was very afraid that here he would meet an enemy he could not beat. Then how should he be in such a situation? But everything was clear to him, and the answer was known from the start. It's just that the moment the choice should have been made came a little earlier. Park Noah intercepts the sword that the professor's pointing at him and says that the man has made a mistake, and now it is Park Noah's turn to ask questions. He asks the professor if they needed a trump card in the team. The professor replies that they need such a card, but Park Noah clearly lacks a lot to be a trump shooter. The professor says that Park Noah still doesn't know why he cut it with such a high sync rate. He added that Noah still lacks knowledge, so he can only recommend it, but he will. He had to pass the entrance test himself. The professor announced the next question. He put his hand on Park Noah's shoulder and said that his goal was the entrance exam that would take place in 3 months, and asked if Park Noah was ready for the brutal training. Park Noah looked at the professor and only thought that he would really be able to enter the Fairyland Academy. On the next day, the first training session started, which was led by the professor, or rather Park Noah thought that they would start, since the professor told him where Park Noah should come. But instead of the professor who came instead, a girl who came to a place that had been promised before. The girl asks Park Noah if he is the same applicant the professor talked about earlier, while Park Noah asked if there were other suitors besides himself. The girl looks at him and warms up, saying that apparently she doesn't know anything about it. But he said that all of this was not so important, and there were more important things he wanted to attack Park Noah. But he managed to react in time and dodge the punch, and then asked what he was doing. Then the girl hit him and he flew, and then he said that she had heard him say that he has a high level of synchronization, and suggested that he fight once. The Fairyland Academy that everyone wants to enter is an internationally renowned school that has produced elite graduates to work in virtual reality-related fields, the most popular of which is a sport whose main objective is to educate professional gamers. Park Noah asked the girl why she asked her to fight. Park Noah doesn't know what's wrong with him. The pink-haired girl. She looked at her, and also didn't understand what was going on. He thought that he might lower his pain threshold, because it didn't hurt at all. The girl asked what Park Noah's pain index was. Park Noah looked at this strange girl in horror, and screamed that she would do it, and not say this to the person who just attacked her. The girl was outraged by this answer, and she asked again what the pain indicator was. Park Noah thought that this girl was too annoying, and then suggested that she should have some sort of relationship with the academy. Dan said that his pain level was 1%. The girl looked at him in surprise and asked how a coward like him could have such high level of synchronization. He added that other people tried to increase the synchronization in any way, so that the pain indicator increased to 20%. Park Noah was surprised, because he didn't know that the synchronization indicator was up, if the pain index is raised. But the girl was annoyed, and said he was very annoying. Then he added that his maximum pain threshold was 20, which meant that Park Noah would also be able to feel pain if he hit him another 20 times. He waved his hand and wanted to punch him, but Park Noah was able to react. He dodged and asked her if the girl thought that he would just stand still and endure all the blows. What he fought, and everyone manages to do it. Park Noah had an unforgettable experience, and thought that it was necessary to maintain such a feeling. When the girl turned around, a punch flew towards her. While they are fighting, the professor is sitting in his office and discussing Park Noah with his assistant. The assistant reads the information on the tablet. He read that Park Noah is 16 years old. He lives in the city and is currently in high school. The assistant is surprised that Park Noah doesn't even have a VR device at home, and then he asks the professor if that's the reason he bought a 3-month subscription to a nearby VR club. The professor replies that it was an assistant asking how Park Noah would look to the professor after their private meeting. The professor straightened up and said that his sync rate was really unusual, but he really had a lot of things he had to learn, he said. The assistant agreed, adding that it would be very difficult for Park Noah to sync alone, because now he has to be able to do a lot of things, the professor said. That's why he asked Carrie to fight Park Noah, and his assistant looked at the professor, who was standing in fear, and asked if it was too much, to which the professor replied that they would soon see for themselves. Then the professor turned to his assistant and said that he could never say something for sure. He must always remember that there will always be monsters that surpass us all. Then the professor entered the game. He saw how Carrie locked Park Noah's body with her attacks. The girl also held Park Noah's hand. He didn't move or break away from Carrie. The professor looks at this picture and wonders if he is expecting too much from Park Noah. This time, Park Noah asked Carrie to let go of her hand. Park Noah tells the professor not to just stand aside and do something with this girl he calls City Brow. The girl was outraged by the words about square eyebrows. They start to find out which one of them is the town brow. And the professor stood up and held his head in his hands. Then he said he should introduce them to each other. He pointed at Park Noah and introduced him as a bow shooter. The professor also added that he recommended him as an academy participant, and now Park Noah will train with him. Then the professor introduces Park Noah to Carrie and says that he is also a shooter. The professor also adds that Carrie was selected to enter the academy 6 months ago. The professor says that if they both register, they will become members of the same team, which means they should definitely be friends. Park Noah looks at Carrie angrily and asks if she is also on recommendation, to which Carrie replies that she doesn't understand anything properly herself. And now he was angry, as if someone had to see it. The professor looked at the two from the side and thought that he had a clear guess as to what their future would be like, that a very cheerful future awaits them. The girl turned around and said that she had done everything the professor asked her to do before and asked if she could go to the training now. Professor says he has one question for him. He started and asked what his impression was after the battle with the Ark. The girl was a little surprised by this question and said that this guy spoiled her mood. The professor doesn't understand what it means to spoil the mood. Park Noah was angry at this time and said that Carrie couldn't calm down. Park Noah starts saying that he is nothing and asked if there really was anyone else like this girl. The professor turned to look at him and said that there were only 2 people he recommended, Park Noah and Carrie, and then the professor asked if Park Noah could also tell him about the impressions after the battle with the same academy participant. Park Noah stood and pondered the question, and the professor told him that to be a true professional apart from synchronization, one needs to know and be able to do many other things, said Park Noah. That Carrie attacks so deftly and without unnecessary movements like a trained fighter. He is much stronger than Park Noah's previous opponents. It was said that during battle he felt something like a wall, and after using synchronization, he felt as if he had used up all his strength. The professor said that Park Noah had hit the nail on the head. He tried to explain to Park Noah that it was all because he used his synchronization to the maximum, and when it reached the maximum mark, he temporarily fell into a state of exhaustion. And in this state, it is almost impossible to cause any sensations with the help of synchronization. That's why the professor was able to attack Park Noah one last time and beat him. Now Park Noah finally understood everything. The professor tells Noah that to learn how to play virtual games professionally, synchronization alone is not enough to improve skills. He needed to constantly train his fighting techniques as well as mental states through meditation. After all, modern professionals are those who are properly trained. The professor explains that he arranged for Park Noah to fight Carrie precisely, so he would understand all of this. Park Noah asks if Carrie has been a suitor here for 6 months. That means she has more than 6 months to train. The professor replies that it is Park Noah saying that in this case he will catch up to Carrie's level in just the 3 months left before the entrance exams. The professor told him it couldn't be done. Park Noah looked at the professor in surprise and asked why it was impossible to do this. The professor turned around and said that he didn't expect Park Noah to reach Carrie's level before exam day. He explains that if Park Noah's main weapon is synchronization, then Carrie has a sense of fighting. He moved as if he was born with this ability, and above all, he devotes his entire day to signing up for training. Therefore, the professor suggested that Park Noah could listen to the fact that he would be able to catch up with Carrie after entering the academy. The professor then tells Park Noah they are also suggested to enter the same academy. So he suggested that if Park Noah wanted, he could arrange it with his school so that Park Noah could focus only on training. Park Noah is very happy because it means he can't go to school if he wants to. For then, Lee Hyun-jung and his disgusting gang will no longer be able to bully Park Noah. Park Noah thought for a moment and then told the professor that he still had some unfinished business at school. Dan asked if he could finish these things first and then focus on training. The professor replied that Park Noah could do what he wanted. He understood very well that Park Noah might need to say goodbye to his school friends. The next day, everyone went to school again. As usual, the teacher came and started taking the students' roll call. Teacher starts with student number 23 in the name of Min Jin-gi, and then number 24. Park Noah. But no answer. And then looking at his desk, Park Noah is not there. He asked if Park Noah didn't come to school. It was late today and everyone went home. It was dark outside and the sun was sinking below the high horizon. Lee Hyun-jung also walked home. Lee Hyun-jung walked and listened to music with headphones. He thought that Park Noah had endured for a long time and finally couldn't stand it, and left this school. The thought brought a tall smile to his face. Lee Hyun-jung thought that Park Noah was a complete loser because he didn't have any parents or abilities. Lee Hyun-jung thought that if Park Noah was not constantly flashing before his eyes, he would not accept Lee Hyun-jung from him. Glad that this pack of Park Noah trash is finally gone. And his soul immediately became lighter. He thought that if Park Noah left immediately, everything would be much easier, and everyone would be happy. Suddenly Lee Hyun-jung saw Park Noah standing on the road right in front of him. He removed the headphones from her ears and asked in surprise if she was waiting for him here. Park Noah looked at him and asked if Lee Hyun-jung would be interested in finding out about the player who beat him in the final. Lee Hyun-jung was only angry when Park Noah told him that Ark was him. Then Park Noah said that this time they have to fight in real life. According to a girl, it is known that the synchronous level and the avatar are interconnected. It is believed that if it increases the percentage of pain acceptance, it can also increase the synchronous level, or the more matched the height of the avatar and the original body, the higher the synchronous level. Actually, all this time Park Noah has lied about his appearance. Frankly, if the glasses do not have lenses, the purpose of wearing glasses is not for appearance or just being stylish. There was only a purpose for him wearing these fake glasses. Even to create a character, Park Noah uses it to shut himself up and plays the role of a quiet and cowardly student. That's how the character for his school to be perfect. That way Park Noah plays a sad schoolboy to the bespectacled Park Noah. And he wore the mask known as the Ark to reveal himself in the virtual world. Because in that way, Park Noah managed to avoid depression because he was going through difficult times. That's how to live life. He thought that thinking was clever. When unlucky in the real world, then he has to accept it. Because there is something that can be done. As long as he did not enter his battlefield, he would not suffer defeat. Only losers step into a battle that is already a losing battle. Park Noah confessed to Lee Hyun-jung that he was the Ark who beat him in the last fight. Park Noah called Lee Hyun-jung a jerk and suggested he now fight in real life. Not wanting to get humiliated and lose, Lee Hyun-jung waved his fist and wanted to punch Park Noah in the face. But Noah manages to avoid the blow. Actually, Park Noah was a little scared, but he tried to convince himself that he had nothing to be afraid of, because he himself purposely sat here and waited for Lee Hyun-jung and was left alone. He said to himself that he had already passed a huge number of battle simulators, and it would not be difficult to imagine that all this was just another game. What Park Noah decided that he must first seduce Lee Hyun-jung to shake his soul? And what's the least favorite thing about a guy who went to high school? Park Noah looked into Lee Hyun-jung's eyes with a smile and said that he only played disgustingly. Lee Hyun-jung was really hurt by that. He looks at Park Noah angrily and asks if he's tired of living because he acts like that and talks to him like that. Park Noah was very happy because he managed to annoy Lee Hyun-jung. He remembered what the mutable battle modes that reviewed the fights were. He has said that if a person is emotional, then he is more likely to land the right punch. But Lee Hyun-jung kicked Park Noah. Park Noah flew to the side. Lee Hyun-jung said that Park Noah might be really stupid, and he went crazy because he thought that, if he was alone, he could beat him. Lee Hyun-jung swung again and punched Park Noah in the face. Park Noah got angry and started beating his enemy. He hid anywhere, and even hit the target a few times. Park Noah shouted at Lee Hyun-jung and continued to beat him with his fists. Lee Hyun-jung thought that Park Noah's nose punch was very blunt. Park Noah was very upset because everything turned out so different from what he had imagined. Understood what he had to do now. Then Lee Hyun-jung punched him in the face again, and this time Park Noah fell backwards onto the ground. Lee Hyun-jung approached Park, who was lying down, and said that he fought in exactly the same way, and looked like a real loser. Park Noah was very angry, and Lee Hyun-jung asked if Park Noah thought he could beat him, and waved his hand again to hit Park Noah. Lee Hyun-jung started hitting Park Noah's face again and again, then asked him why he didn't come to school today. Then said if he didn't behave like that, he would settle for less, and then said that Park Noah made up too much for himself. Lee Hyun-jung asked if Park Noah really thought he could beat him. Park Noah replied that when she is alone with someone, most likely Lee Hyun-jung, she is not afraid of him at all, and even spits in his face. Lee Hyun-jung was seething with anger and once again punched Park Noah hard in the face, while screaming that he would finish her off. Park Noah lay exhausted and beaten, and Lee Hyun-jung got up and said that Park Noah must not appear in front of him again, otherwise he could really kill him and call Park Noah pathetic. Lee Hyun-jung went to the house, but Park Noah sat down and asked where Lee Hyun-jung had gone. He said he hasn't even hit him yet. With a scream, Park Noah rushed to Lee Hyun-jung, and Lee Hyun-jung stood and waited to strike back, but suddenly he fell from his feet. He seems to be overexerting himself, and his legs aren't even holding him now. But Park Noah realized that in a real fight, he would never beat Lee Hyun-jung. Park Noah remembered the professor's question about whether he had a fighting spirit. Thanks to that, he was ready to fight even someone he could beat. Now Park Noah at least knows exactly how to answer this question. He could refuse even Park Noah tried to fight Lee Hyun-jung for the first time. Today, a loser like Park Noah is really not easy, but he credited himself for being able to hold on and survive until now. After all these brutal beatings. But was this really the end of it? What would change if he came face to face with someone who was even difficult to call an opponent? Park Noah thought whether this was really the correct answer to the professor's question. But now everything is fine, and Park Noah is very tired and wants to rest. In his dream, or maybe it was his hallucination, he saw his memories. He saw him pick up the professor's sword and asked if he needed a trump card in the team. Now it seems very funny. He laughed at Park Noah, his words about being a trump card. Because of this, he couldn't even lose. After hearing his own voice, Park Noah suddenly opened his eyes and woke up. He managed to hit Lee Hyun-jung right in the face with his fist. This was the first time he was able to hit Lee Hyun-jung, and Lee Hyun-jung flew backwards. Park Noah stood up and looked at his enemy. Park Noah was surprised that Lee Hyun-jung didn't wake up. He started laughing and said that he knew full well that Lee Hyun-jung was faking it. Park Noah told him to get up. She laughed, calling him a failed and thick-headed gamer. He said that if Lee Hyun-jung kept on lying like that, then and the win would count for him. But Lee Hyun-jung still didn't wake up, so Park Noah went to Lee Hyun-jung and looked at him. He was a little scared, then he was happy. He dropped Lee Hyun-jung and shouted with joy. This is the first time Park Noah has shouted his heart out in his life. After a tiring day, Park Noah finally came home and told the robot that he was home. The robot greets Park Noah and asks how his meeting with his friend was. Park Noah replied that his meeting with his friend went well. Then the robot started to grunt. The robot says that it is a day off from school and Park Noah can sit at home and relax. The robot is surprised to see how energetic the kids are now. Park Noah was changing clothes at the time and asked the robot where he learned how to grunt. Did he learn it from the TV show? The robot said no. When he came from the street, he had to wash his hands and feet immediately, but Park Noah had already gone to lay down on the bed. The robot screams that it's time for Park Noah to get rid of this stupid habit. He went to bed. Park Noah is lying on the bed. His face was all bruised from being beaten. Robot asks what happened to his face. Park Noah replied that nothing serious had happened to him, and he had just fallen down the stairs. The robot started asking from another staircase which one Park Noah fell on, and what was wrong with his face. Park Noah tried to calm the robot down and said that he shouldn't worry too much about this. Park Noah closed his eyes and said with a smile that the most important thing was that he could beat this ladder. The robot looked at Noah in surprise and didn't understand what the man was talking about. After some time, Park Noah met a professor in virtual reality near a hotel in one of the villages in the Game of Time's Heroes. The professor said that everything was resolved much faster than he expected. At first he thought that Park Noah would be busy with his problems for at least a week. Park Noah just sat at the table smiling and looking at the professor, and then said that the sooner they start training, the better. The professor asks if Park Noah has said goodbye to his schoolmates. Park Noah replied that of course he said goodbye to them properly, and waved his hand so the officers looked at him with joy and fear. The professor wonders how Park Noah is walking with his friends. Then the professor said that first he would not tell about how the entrance exams to the academy were arranged. He tells Park Noah that there are 10 professors in the Fairyland Academy who lead their own game teams. Each team recruits at least 5 and a maximum of several dozen students, and holds a competition. But the professor said that there is one small obstacle in this competition, because the number of players is not limited. There is a problem when there are more students in some teams than in others, because there are teams where there are not enough participants. The academy has taken special measures. Park Noah asked what the steps were about, and the professor replied that these steps were the same as for the applicant. Park Noah, who was taken on a recommendation, he explained that professors look for the most capable people outside the academy, and each year they can recommend no more than 2 applicants. Testing is necessary to assess their capabilities, as well as to prevent entry fraud. He says that if Park Noah doesn't get the required number of points, he won't be able to enter the academy at all costs. Park Noah is annoyed that if he doesn't pass this exam, then all his efforts will just turn into soap bubbles, but the professor quickly reassures Park Noah, saying that he has absolutely nothing to worry about. He also says that other than sync, no one needs to master basic skills, and their professor promises to drive Noah into his head in 3 months. Now the professor offers to finally start training. The professor gives Park Noah a training suit. Information says that this is a costume to change the character's appearance. Equipment indicators are stored in the same form. The professor also drew up a 4-point training plan for Park Noah. The first item is the professor's lecture. Park Noah has to listen to a professor's lecture every day. In the lecture, the professor talks about the theory of synchronous combat, the position of a gamer, and other useful things that will add to Park Noah's missing knowledge of virtual reality. The second point is physical training in the real world. Park Noah is trained along with his robot, which monitors the high-quality performance of all drills. The professor believes that physical strength is very important in the game. The third point is hunting the heroes of time and leveling up. The professor said that there was no need for Park to familiarize himself with the academy's class schedule, where the virtual game takes 10 hours every day, and the last point, and perhaps the most terrible, is the daily hand-to-hand fight with Carrie, without using sync. Carrie is constantly angry that she doesn't want to help Park Noah in training and says that she doesn't like him. But in the campaign, his pain level went up at least a little, and now it's even fun for him to beat him. Park Noah is very angry with Carrie, and he doesn't like to fight with her because he beats her constantly. But otherwise, sometimes it even seems funny to him and he laughs. Park Noah sadly thought that with his physical form, not even Carrie was afraid of him. Now whatever, he was so afraid that the academy was full of people like him, those who enjoy fighting people like him. Park Noah was well aware that he needed some other weapon besides sync. He wanted to punch Carrie, but she failed again, and he kicked her hard in the face. But Park Noah didn't want to give up just because he couldn't beat her. Now after all, in the fight with Lee Hyun-jung, Park Noah learned something he finally realized. If he doesn't give up, then another path opens. Carrie hit him in the face again and again and told him to finally shut up. So 3 months passed unnoticed in training, exactly 1 day left before the final test. Park Noah packed up the things at home. He checked to see if he had forgotten something he signed up for. That he had taken his toothbrush, clothes, backpack. Park Noah was finally able to pack all the things in the backpack. The robot appears behind Noah and tells him to check carefully if there's anything he forgot. Park Noah tells the robot to finally stop acting like that, and that he checked everything himself and forgot nothing. While putting on his shoes, Park Noah is so afraid to miss the train, he runs out of the house and tells the robot he will be home soon. The robot wished him good luck and told him not to rush. Robot is very worried about Noah. He thought that maybe the child would fall if he ran that fast. Then the robot looks at the photos on the shelf. In a photo of Park Noah's parents with him. The robot suddenly realizes that he has been here for 5 years. He remembered sadly. John and Lorraine are Park Noah's parents. He tells them that Noah finally has his own place. He wants to be a pro gamer. Is this really the same Noah, who does nothing but cry? After Lorraine and John disappeared, now this Park Noah walked forward with his head held high. The robot tells Noah's parents in the photo that he has a test at the academy tomorrow, and asks them to support their son so he can achieve what he wants. While Park Noah arrives on the train, even though he is almost late, he looks around. It is announced that the express train will run non-stop from city to city. Park Noah saw the train and thought that was cool. Suddenly there was a strange feeling, whether it was joy or fear. He held his heart in his hand when the passenger was told the train was leaving. Park Noah can't believe now he's going to town for the first time in his life. He anticipates because surely everything is more developed in the city. The remaining joy in Park Noah remember about the exam. The professor even bought him a ticket for an expensive train. Park Noah was very afraid of not passing the exam and disappointing the professor. But then Park Noah tried to drive all the bad thoughts out of him because he was tested before he just needed to be more confident in his abilities. Park Noah clenched his fists, but then he remembered again that he could never win a single fight with Carrie. Park Noah clutched his head and tried to drive away the bad thoughts. Suddenly a bright light began to shine in his eyes. Park Noah was shocked and looked out the window. It was very beautiful outside the train window. It was sunset. The sun was shining brightly and the voices of the crowd were heard. He saw water glistening in the sun. He leaned his hands and face against the window and gazed happily at this beauty now. He suddenly began to clearly feel that he was going to the academy. Finally, the train arrived at its destination. He got off the train and was very happy to be here. He was greeted by a man he did not know. It was an assistant professor. Kim's assistant introduces himself and says that the professor has sent him so he can accompany him. Park Noah greeted back and remembered that the professor had told him about his assistant. His assistant Kim took off his glasses and greeted Park Noah with a welcome to town greeting. Assistant Kim takes Park Noah to a hotel that the academy has specially prepared for those who come from far away. Park Noah was very surprised and asked if he could really use all of this. Kim's assistant says that Noah can use everything in this hotel indefinitely. And he added that Kim's assistant was happy to see Park Noah's appearance, which was much more innocent than his appearance in the Interverse. Though better off with this performance, Park Noah asks if they've met on the Interverse. Kim's assistant said that he was the one who recommended Park Noah to the professor, and he said that he is the famous male streamer on the planet, and he is the one who leads all the games. Park Noah was very surprised and thanked the man for recommending him. But Assistant Kim was a little annoyed because he expected a completely different reaction. Actually, Park Noah went there just because of Lee Hyun-jung, and he never saw that himself. Park Noah asked if it was possible to enter the intersection in this hotel. Assistant Kim replied that it was impossible because the professor said that Park Noah should have a good rest today. So Kim's assistant didn't offer a deal. He says he's supposed to be on a date today, and if Noah says that Kim takes good care of him, he'll pretend that he doesn't know that Park Noah has visited the Interverse world. He was delighted, and even said that he would subscribe to Assistant Kim's channel. Kim's assistant is surprised that he hasn't subscribed yet, but Park Noah is very happy about it. He was finally in town. He really wanted to see one thing here, a place that completely repeats the city of the mirror world. Local worlds that can only be accessed in the city. The city is built by updating the real city changes and the time in it. He can use avatars that move faster than real physical bodies. This is a famous tourist place, where everyone can feel like a hero. Indeed, Park Noah felt that he was using his avatar in the real world. He ran around the city and saw everything he saw in it. He saw many different people. It seems most people from the city only live in this mirror world. Then Park Noah thought he wasted his time and ran to find what he finally came to. He found it. A faker statue that only exists in the mirror world. There is a legend about the statue. Even though he suddenly quit the industry and disappeared from the scene, he was still regarded by people as a legend. The greatest gamer who accomplished many things in his prime. Faker. Park Noah had read on the internet that if he made a wish from this statue, then he would definitely be lucky in the game. He asked for a statue to make of it so he could enter the academy tomorrow. Just then, Carrie was also here and asked the statue for something. They looked at each other, and it was clear they were not happy about the encounter. Carrie asks why Park Noah is here. Park Noah understood that Carrie was worried about tomorrow like him, so he came here. But Carrie didn't like that. She told him never to compare himself to her. Then he asked why he was here if the professor said to rest today. Park Noah said he couldn't tell him because it was a secret. Park Noah understands that he and Carrie are very different. After all, he says he has something else to see and is about to leave, but Carrie asks him where he is going. He said he was going to the academy. Then Carrie asked him why he was going there. Because he wouldn't make it anyway. Park Noah asked what he just said, and the girl replied that she was just trying in vain. Park Noah asks why he said he won't be able to enter the academy, and what does it mean? What does the 3 months of preparation mean? Then Noah trained with Carrie for 3 months out of 132 fights. Noah lost 132 times. He never managed to beat Carrie. To be more precise, he could never even do an accurate strike. But even after all these failures, no one didn't feel defeated. On the contrary, he strives for self-improvement every day. He thought about how he could beat Carrie, and even during training he put more and more effort into discovering his technique. This effort gives him pleasure for Park Noah because Carrie is a good opponent, the one he wanted to defeat himself, and now his words shocked him. Noah asks why Carrie said that because she won't lose forever. He also asked if she wanted to fight him. Then they ran towards each other, intending to attack. Park Noah was finally able to attack first. He punched Carrie in the stomach, but not hard, which surprised her. She asks him what he's doing, and he tells her to go back on her word, as he will also be able to enter the academy. Carrie said that it was obvious, and she wasn't going to go back on her word by throwing Park Noah to the ground. He says he won't be able to get into the academy, and Noah asks him why he keeps saying that. And that Carrie replied that in the mirror world, the entrance to the academy was forbidden to outsiders, meaning she wouldn't be able to enter the academy. It was invisible to outsiders, so he wouldn't be able to see it even from the outside. Park Noah is very surprised, and Carrie asks if he really doesn't know. Park Noah asks if Carrie means she won't go to the academy. He asked how long. She felt everything like that. Then she asked him why he said something like that, if they are on the same team. Carrie said she would kill him if Park Noah didn't pass the test tomorrow. Park Noah started crying because of Carrie's threatening words. Carrie also felt tired after her move to punch Park Noah, and she wanted to eat. He suggested they go to a hotel together to eat something. Park Noah agrees. He thought that since she offered him dinner together, that he would see Carrie in real life.